Hello and welcome to the Skaredcast book review. Today we get to show off the new Drukhari Codex. That's right, the brand new Drukhari Codex. After 3 years, it's finally here. I haven't even opened the shrink wrap. Let's dive in.
The Dark King.
I am the #1 Drukhari player in the world. And this is the Drukhari Codex, brand new from Games Workshop. Thank you so much, Games Workshop, for sending me a preview copy so I can open it, enjoy it, read it, and digest it. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the book itself, the changes from the old index to what we have now. I'm going to go over every single unit, datasheet, stratagem, detachment, ability, and hopefully you can learn something about my favorite faction. So we have the book in hand. Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. First things first. Pa-pow! Let's open this baby because I am... Oh, yeah, look at that. Oh, this is like my favorite part of getting a codex or a brand new thing. I get to open it. Yeah. Rip it open. And hear the crack spine, the spine crack. Will that work today? Oh yeah, the crack of the spine. And then that's how we, and that is how we begin. So I've been playing the Drukhari Codex, or Index, for 3 years. Finally, we have the brand new Drukhari Codex. Oh, I'm so excited to show this off for all of you today. Very, very pumped. So let's dive in. Now we're going to go over the detachments. We're going to go over the different data sheets. We're going to go over all this stuff. And I really hope that you have a good time with it as well. So I am just super excited to kind of show it off and basically explain it all to you. So I got a digital copy as well from Games Workshop before I got the main book. And I tell you, I read the book cover to cover, and then I read all the lore again, and then I read it cover to cover again. So my first impressions of this book were very straightforward. They gave Drukhari every rule conceivable in 10th edition, but they put it in every single different place you can imagine, which means that in order to really use this book effectively, you're going to have to mix and match and find combinations and execute plays. So it's going to be a very fun, diverse, interesting book to play with a lot of different interlocking abilities and combinations that you can use. So with that in mind, I read through the book multiple times. And the first thing I noticed was the changes, pain tokens, movement, leadership. We're going to get to that. And then I dove in even further. And then I played games. So I played a game. There's, of course, a battle report that should be available today where I played Nick Nanavati and his Harlequin. So there's a battle report. Make sure you check that. There's multiple battle reports with this book coming up. And I have had a blast. This book is really fun to play. So let's dive into the book itself. First, of course, you start with the lore, and I will be doing a little bit of a crusade thing as well. I love it. They really kind of like fleshed out a couple of lore, like where Uri and Rakarth is and things like that as well. The art is phenomenal. I just love the aesthetic of the Drukhari. It is an army that I've been playing for a very long time. Yeah, since about 2007. Or something like that, which is crazy. And yeah, we've got our combat patrol, which is all Coven stuff, right? So different combat patrol. Do I like the combat patrol? Yes, it's good value. There are a couple of different lists that use these models, and it's a nice place to get all of this like Coven stuff in one easy place. I'm not going to go too much into the rules of the combat patrol, but let me know if you like combat patrol. I know some folks really do. And with that, let's dive in. So let's kind of like break down the army rule and a couple of the changes. So, number 1, a couple of major changes. We got leadership debuffs or decreases from the index, essentially army-wide. Most of our stuff is now leadership 7, not leadership 6. Now, this is a subtle change, but a big one, as we're not as sort of like organized or disciplined as, say, Space Marines or our Craftworld cousins. This is good and bad. It does mean that certain characters are going to be very valuable for leadership to prevent things like battle shock and stuff. So now we have more of an average leadership across the board. Another one of the main changes is movement across the board kind of went down a little bit. Cabalite's going to movement 7, just little tidbits like that changed. And it took me a while to really notice a lot of these subtle changes and differences that were sort of like just hidden in and amongst the rules within this. The army rule is very similar to the rule that we had in the index. You get pain tokens, you put them on a unit, and it empowers them. What they do and how to use them changes. So now instead of just putting it on a unit at the start of a phase to get rerolls, every single unit has a pain ability. These pain abilities vary from advance and charge on witches to extra damage attacks and like AP and stuff in close combat to move faster if you do it in the movement phase, and they're all exceptionally useful abilities. At first reading, I really thought that I was going to be struggling to get pain tokens. However, the more I've been playing, the more I've found that it's not that bad. I was swimming in pain tokens towards the end of games, and I didn't even know what to spend them on. So good, judicious use of your pain tokens early in the game is going to be paramount in order for you to maximize on what you can do. How do you get them? You get 1 at the start of each of your command phases. You get 1 every time an enemy unit is just destroyed. Vehicle explosion, hazardous check, that sort of stuff. Anytime an enemy unit dies, you get 1. And every time an enemy unit fails a battle shock test, you also get a pain token. So not only can you get them in the more traditional way from the index, you also have the Cronos that kept its regeneration ability for pain tokens, and a Homunculus also has access to potentially giving you 1 at the start of a command phase as well. Very useful way of using the rule in and of itself. But keep that in mind. At first glance, it seems like you're not going to have as many, but you actually have more guaranteed pain tokens, so it's very good into elite armies, and there are many ways to get tons more pain tokens in this book. The army rule is very similar, and it's going to take some time for you to learn what each unit pain ability does, because it's really in those combos of the pain abilities where you're going to get the most out of your Drukhari. One of the awesome important things to remember about these new pain abilities is that they are essentially activated when the units are selected to do something. Move, fight, shoot, which means 2 things. 1, you don't have to have a stack of pain tokens at the beginning of a phase to use, and you can use 1 pain token to kill an enemy unit, to then cascade into using a pain token on another unit that then kills an enemy unit, to then use another pain token, etc., 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 which means you can be a lot better with your pain token management, and even if you have 1 in the bank, it doesn't necessarily mean you're only going to have 1. Combine that with something like a Cronos, and all of a sudden you could have 1 pain token turn into 2, turn into 4, turn into etc., etc., etc. So the first thing we're going to do is look at all the new data sheets for the Drukhari Codex. Now this is going to allow us to take a look at the different detachments and then really kind of like add value to the detachments based on, what the different units do. So we're going to go through each detachment. We're going to later we're going to go through each data sheet, look at the stats, look at the options. I'll give you a couple of tips and tricks for each single one. Things that I have learned from experience of playing this faction for many years through thick and through thin. So if you are an aspiring Drukhari player and want to learn how to play the faction, you might get a few tidbits. And if not, and you want to learn how to beat the Drukhari, then you stick around and maybe I'll mention some of the things that we don't like to play against. Hint, hint, bolters, chainswords, and autocannons. That's the bane of any Drukhari player. Okay, let's dive into the data sheets. Let's begin with the good old Archon. So the Archon, movement 7, T3, 4-up save, 2-up invul that you cannot reroll and you only have until you fail it. 6-up leadership with 4 wounds and 1 OC. Of course, equipped with a blast pistol and or splinter pistol. The blast pistol is a generic profile, so I'm going to say it like 1 time here and then I'll just say blast pistol. Same as a splinter pistol. Pretty much the same profile everywhere you see it. The blast pistol is a 6-inch pistol. 1 attack that hits, in this case on 2s, strength 8, AP3, D3 damage. And a Splinter Pistol is anti-infantry 3+, assault pistol. 12 inches, 1 attack, hits on 2s, strength 2, AP01 damage. Cool. Neat. The melee weapons that the Archon has access to are an Agonizer, which is 6 attacks to hit on 2, strength 3, AP21 damage at anti-infantry 3+. A Husk Blade, which has devastating wounds. 4 attacks at weapon skill 2, strength 3, AP2, 3 damage. So really nice there. I really like that one. And a Mastercrafted Power Weapon. 5 attacks at weapon skill 2 with 4s, strength 4, -2, 2 damage. So kind of neat, a little bit stronger there as well. So the options that the Archon has. Number 1, Leader. Number 2 has Power from Pain. The Power from Pain, Hatred Eternal Pain ability. In your shooting phase or fight phase, when this unit's empowered, they get reroll all hit rolls. Pretty standard. I really like that for the Archon. Once per battle at the start of any phase with the Overlord ability, you can select a friendly Drukhari unit that's battle shocked, and it's no longer battle shocked. So take away battle shock. Kind of handy in a pinch, especially with the changes to our leadership. And Devious Mastermind. Once per battle round, a model from your army with this ability can use it when it's targeted with a stratagem. If it does, reduce the CP cost by 1. So -1 CP cost, excellent, excellent ability. Now, it can be attached to as a leader to Hand of the Archon, Incubi, and Cabalite warriors. Now, it comes standard with a Splinter Pistol, Huskblade, and Shadowfield. However, you can, instead of equipping it with any sort of pistol, you can replace the pistol for a Soul Trap. Soul Trap makes the Archon a little bit more of a punchy character. You get +1 attack and strength to the melee weapons, and after you've killed the first model with this model, so like as soon as you kill a single model, Guardsman, Grot, anything like that, you get an extra +1 strength, +1 attack. Which means, in my favorite configuration, a Huskblade with a Soul Trap. It goes to 5 attacks, they hit on 2, strength 4, AP2, 3 damage with dev wounds. As soon as you kill a single model, goes to 6 attacks at strength 5, AP2, 3 damage with dev wounds. With reroll all hit rolls, and then say in a Cabalite squad, reroll wound rolls of 1, or reroll all wound rolls against units on objectives, the Archon is a very solid choice for what you get. You've got keywords such as Infantry, Cabal, Character, Eldari, and Archon, and of course, the faction keyword is Drukhari. Overall, the Archon, excellent choice in any Drukhari list. Now we take a look at Lady Malice herself, brand new character that was, well, not brand new character, that she's been around since, you know, like 5th edition, 4th edition, like the first like Dark Eldar Codex after the 3rd edition one. Lady Malice is awesome. Love her lore. The Cabal of the Poisoned Tongue is her Cabal. She has the stats of an Archon, except it has a 4-up invulnerable save all the time and 5 wounds instead of 4 wounds. Everything else is pretty much the same. She is Objective Control 2, however, so double the Objective Control of a regular Archon. That's pretty cool. She has a 5+ Feel No Pain, which is neat, and then she's also a leader in Power for Pain. She can lead the same things an Archon can, Hand, Incubi, and Cabalite warriors. Now, she has 0 close combat weapons. Instead, she has the Lady's Blade, which is a 6 attacks, hit on 2, strength 5, AP3, 3 damage Husk Blade, which is basically devastating wounds and hazardous. It's a full-on super juiced Husk Blade that has already been soul trapped, basically. And in addition, she has a Razor Fan. She'll attack you with her Razor Fan. It's extra attacks. It's 6 attacks. Weapon skill 2, strength 3, AP0, 1 damage. All in all, a little bit of a beat stick, and the toughest of the 2 Archon-style models that we have. Her Power from Pain ability is the Archon of the Poisoned Tongue. So in your shooting phase or fight phase, when you've empowered this unit, when you're going to shoot or fight with them, you can give them sustained or lethal hits. That's it. You give sustained or lethal to her unit when they're empowered in the shooting or fight phase. Really neat. You don't get the full rerolls, but sustained and or lethals can be kind of handy. And of course, you get the reroll wound rolls if you're with a Cabalite squad. It also works nicely with conjunction with the Hand of the Archon that gets sustained and precision on a lot of their weapons. So you could do like, lethal and precision. So you could do sustained lethal precision with 1 pain token there, or you could run in and do like sustained hits to get an Incubi unit to get more attacks, things like that. Cool, like, option. I like her ability. Now, she has 2 datasheet abilities that are incredible. Precognizant. After both players have deployed, you can pick 3 Drukhari units. So this is any Drukhari unit and redeploy them or put them in reserve. I absolutely love this rule. It allows you to infiltrate a unit up to prevent enemy infiltrators from deploying in the midboard, and then just redeploy that unit so that it's not getting sacrificed. Amazing for a unit of Mandrakes. In the Cabalite Cartel, she can use that to redeploy the infiltrating Cabalites that you put on the board. I love redeploy. I use it a lot. People go, redeploy, whatever. It is so powerful in the right hands. It is very good. Mind Like a Steel Trap is a 12-inch aura of +1 command point to enemy stratagems. What we like to colloquially call Vect aura, which I find hilarious because Lady Malice is trying to kill Vect, or at least that's what the lore says. So it's funny that we call it Vect aura, and that's what she has. And that's it. She's an epic hero. She's Infantry Cabal, an Archon, and she has the Drukhari keywords. I think Lady Malice is a must-take in every Drukhari list, and I would always want to run her. She is awesome. Then we move on to the Hand of the Archon. So this has your basic Cabalite stats. Movement 7, Toughness 3, 4-up save with a 6-up invul, 1 wound, Leadership 7, and 1 objective control. So 1 less objective control than your average Cabalite warriors. The unit itself is 10 strong, and it has quite a lot of different like war gear options and everything, as you can see here. This is the kill team set, and it essentially, I guess, replaces the old court of the Archon. Does it really do it effectively or the same? I don't think it's the same. It's just different. Now, their ability is Scout 7, so they have the ability to move into the board. And with their Archon's Retinue rule, if a leader is attached to them, the leader also gets Scout 7. So an Archon or Lady Malice in this unit would get Scout 7, so you can put them in a transport, a raider, and the raider would also get Scout 7. So kind of handy to have if you want some like initial board pressure, early like board control. Now, they basically come equipped almost the same as Cabalite warriors. They can have the Arc Cybrite, the Sergeant, can have a power weapon. The Cybrite's rifle can be a blast pistol or a splinter pistol. The Arc Cybrite can be equipped with an Icon or a Phantasm grenade launcher. Now, the Icon is a new war gear choice. It's like the little flag that comes in the squad, and that wasn't a choice before. That is, while the bearer's unit is not battle shocked, you add 1 to the bearer's objective control characteristic. So that single model gets +1 OC. I don't think it's worth giving up the smoke keyword. In this case, Hands of the Archons have the grenade keyword. And so when you give them the Phantasm grenade launcher, they only gain the smoke keyword, whereas Cabalite warriors gain the smoke and grenade keyword. So it's a little less effective here. But I think the flag it's like a cute choice, if you wanted a single model to have more OC. So you could have like Malice, that's 2 OC, and then 1 Sergeant from the hand, that's 2 OC. It's 4 OC in 2 models, not terrible. And then if they use their Archon's Will ability to pick 1 objective marker on the battlefield that they stand on to get an objective control characteristic of 3, right? Then the Sergeant goes to 4, and Malice is 3. So you actually have 7 objective control on your main objective with 2 models. That's not bad for like a late game objective grab. So like there is play there if you're going to be playing around with it. And they're very good at taking that 1 objective. So you can have 1 with a heavy weapon, either a Dark Lance or Splinter Cannon, 1 with a Blaster or Shredder. Instead of 2 with blast, like 1 each, Blaster, Shredder, Splinter Cannon, Dark Lance, like a Cabalite squad, you get 1 of each special and 1 of each heavy weapon. One of your choice. My apologies. The Blaster stayed the same. 18 inches, 1 attack, Ballistical 3, Strength 8, AP 4, D6 +1 damage. The Dark Lance is the same. Heavy, 36 inches at 1 attack. Ballistical 4, strength 12, minus 3, d6 plus 2 damage. So like a better last cannon, right? One model can be equipped with a Shard Carbine. So it's essentially an 18-inch range, anti-infantry 3+ assault weapon. It hits on 3s, strength 2, AP 0, 1 damage. So it's like a rifle with an extra shot and less range. You know, one of them can have the Shredder, which is Assault and Torrent. Does not ignore cover. It is 18 inches, d6 hits at strength 6, 1 damage, AP 0. And then a Splinter Cannon. 3 shots at 36 inches, a hit on 4s, strength 3, AP 1, 2 damage, with Assault, Anti-Infantry 3+, heavy and sustained hits 1. So essentially like a heavy bolter, if you know what a heavy bolter is. You have the Splinter Pistol as an option, which we talked about before, and then a Splinter Rifle. The Splinter Rifle profile is literally the same. It's 2 shots at 24 inches with Assault, Anti-Infantry 3+, Ballistical 3, Strength 2, AP 0, 1 damage. Now, you can take a Stinger Pistol, which is Anti-Infantry 2+ and Pistol. It's 12 inches, 1 shot that hits on 3, Strength 2, AP 0, 1 damage. But it's like not worth it, I think, to lose out on 1 rifle to get that pistol. Now, in terms of melee weapons, the Sergeant could be equipped with a power weapon. The power weapon is one of the changes that was subtle, but affected a lot of our units. It is now just standard AP 2, because pain tokens in combat no longer give an additional AP. It usually, because each unit does something different. But a power weapon is anti-infantry 3+, very similar to our old Agonizer. It's 4 attacks, weapon skill 3, strength 3, minus 2, 1 damage. So, pretty decent, just an extra attack there. Close combat weapons are the same across the board. 2 attacks, hit on 3, strength 3, AP 0, 1 damage. And then there are 2 special weapons that you can equip them with for combat. A Pain Sculptor, which is 3 attacks, so weapon skill 3, strength 4, AP minus 1, 1 damage. Anti-infantry 4 and Twin Link, so very similar to what Wracks are equipped with. And last but not least, a Razor Flail, which is 4 attacks, weapon skill 3, strength 4, AP 2, 1 damage. Very similar to what the Witches get to use as well. So, a good variety of combat and shooting. I think the Hand of the Archon is a very versatile unit, but it cannot be split in Venoms. And that's, I think, one of the main things that deters me from the unit, is unless I'm playing it in a detachment where I can run it out and in of a Raider and it doesn't get absolutely demolished, it dies very quickly. Even with their Archon's Will ability, where not only do you get their objective control goes to 3 on that selected objective, you get a 5-up invulnerable save, which is good, but it's still only toughness 3 bodies. Now, their pain ability is Assassin's Poisons. In your shooting phase or fight phase, you spend a pain token to empower the unit, and while they're empowered, weapons they equipped, excluding blast pistols, blasters, and dark lances, so any of the heavy weapons, will have lethal and precision. Now, this is also in combat, which is really cool, which means you can have Lady Malice in there with her sustained, right? Lethal, precision, and all of a sudden, then all of the models in the unit benefit from both abilities, from the pain abilities, which means this can be a very nasty unit when used effectively. Moving on, we have our Incubi units. We have Drazhar and the Incubi. Now, these are just excellent units for close combat damage in a Drukhari force. So let's take a look at Drazhar first. Movement 7, toughness 3. He does have the best armor save around for a 2-up armor save with a 4-up invul. He's 5 wounds and leadership 6 with 1 objective control. Now, he changed a little bit from the index. In terms of combat, he is equipped with the Executioner's Demi-Claves that he can use as a single blade or as a dual blade. They both just have devastating wounds now. They're both melee. The single blade is 6 attacks at weapon skill 2, strength 6, AP 2, 3 damage, so went up an attack, which is kind of cool. And the Demi-Clave dual blades are 8 attacks, weapon skill 2, strength 5, AP 2, 2 damage. Neat. His attacks went up. Now, he is a leader that can join Incubi, and he has his pain ability as well. And that's it. He's a epic hero and also a blade for hire, which is important for some of the detachments that we'll see. Now, he has 2 datasheet rules. One of them is Onslaught. So while he's leading a unit, that unit can pile in and consolidate 6 inches instead of 3. Neat. I really like that. It allows him to really get up close to the enemy and fight with as many models as possible. And then Silent Executioner. So each time this model makes an attack that targets a unit that's below starting strength, you can reroll the hit roll. If it targets a unit that is below half strength, you can also reroll the wound roll. So reroll hits, usually. Reroll hits and wounds to finish things off. I really like Drazhar as like a little assassin that can go in to like kill a big knight or something that has been wounded and just kind of do the damage to kind of just make sure it's dead, right? I really like that. And then as for his pain ability, Master of Blades, you empower him in the fight phase when they're selected to fight, and you can spend a pain token to empower the unit. And while that unit is empowered, each time a model in that unit makes a melee attack, you just get +1 to wound. So instead of leading the unit to do it, you can just use a pain token to do it. And that means Drazhar doesn't need to lead a unit to get +1 to wound anymore, just has to use a pain token. But it does mean that the Incubi that go with him tend to be a little bit more punchy if you want to do that. And I think he's still a very solid tournament staple choice for any Drukhari force. And then we, of course, run into the Incubi. The retinues for Archons and Drazhar, and of course, Malice. So Incubi were one of those units that got some subtle changes, which I really liked from the Index to the Codex. Movement 7, Toughness 3 with a 3-up save, so good armor. They have a 5-up in Revel save, of course, because they are essentially Aspect Warriors. 1 wound on the regular Incubi, 2 on the Clavex. Leadership 6, so they kept their good leadership, and 1 objective control. Now, they are equipped with Demiclaves, which are, they're equipped with Claves, which is 3 attacks, weapon skill 3, strength 5, AP 2, 2 damage. And then the Sergeant, or the Clavex, is equipped with Demiclaves, or can be equipped with Demiclaves, which can be used as a single blade, which is the exact same thing as a Clave, except 4 attacks each, or dual blades, which are lost twin linked, sadly, so they don't get twin linked anymore. Big sad, because I really love that twin linked rule. However, there are 6 attacks, weapon skill 3, strength 4, -2, 1 damage. So they added basically a strength and not a strength. They added an AP to that unit. Now, cool thing though, the single blade claves and the demiclave single blade went up to strength 5. That is an awesome breakpoint. Strength 5 means you're wounding Marines on 3s now instead of 4s, and now you're like wounding big knight, like mini knights or toughness 9 stuff on 5s, which then added with Drazhar means now you're wounding them on 4s. I really like this change. It's a subtle breakpoint change for wounding, which will make Incubi more reliable at killing specific things that they struggled with before, like small units of Space Marine infantry. I think that's going to be a very important change that you will see in your games of Warhammer. Now, they do have Power from Pain. They do have now a Shrine token for every 5 Incubi. They have a Shrine token where you can change a hit roll or wound roll for only the Incubi and the Clavex, so not an attached unit, which makes me really sad, not a leader, right, to a 6. So kind of neat if you want to get that extra hit or make sure that you wound that extra time. And then they have 2 rules. Their regular datasheet rule is called Tormentors. Start of the fight phase, each enemy unit in engagement range has to take a battle shock test. That hasn't changed. However, they've added something to this. If this unit is fighting a battle shocked unit, they just get +1 to hit, so they hit on 2s. That's really cool. Like in Reaper's Wager, for example, you're rerolling 1s to hit. If you're attacking a battle shocked unit, now it's 2s rerolling 1s to hit, making them very efficient, even without the full rerolls that you used to get. You can always take an Archon, of course, if you want full rerolls on this unit. And their pain ability is called Decapitating Strikes. In the fight phase, when you select this unit to fight, you can spend a pain token to empower the unit. So while empowered, each time a model in this unit makes a melee attack that targets an infantry unit, this attack has devastating wounds. Now, it's really cool when you combine it with, say, an Archon with an Agonizer. 6 attacks, potentially with a Soul Trap, 7 or 8 attacks, anti-infantry 3+, with a pain token, devastating wounds with a unit of Incubi, right? Like, that could be devastating to like a unit of infantry that you're trying to clear out with some Incubi, right? That is pretty cool when you start looking at some of these crazy combos you can do when you're like depending on what kind of Archon you want to have, or take it with Drazhar. He already has devastating wounds, that's fine. But the Incubi themselves, pretty snazzy. You know, look at, for example, Malice. You know, she can give them sustained, right? So that's pretty cool as well. So I love them as a staple. They're a good combat unit, and I think they'll make it into a lot of lists. Now we go into the first of the battle line units, the Cabalite Warriors. I love Cabalite Warriors. Every single list I make has at least one unit of Cabalite Warriors. They're iconic Drukhari unit, and I absolutely love them. So movement 7, toughness 3, 4-up save with 6-up invul, 1 wound with leadership 7, and 2 OC. Neat. I like it. They're just a solid troop choice or battle line choice. Now, very much like the Hand of the Archon, they have lots of weapon options, except that they can take 2 special weapons, 2 heavy weapons. So they can take 1 of each. The Sergeant can take basically all the same gear that the Hand of the Archon can take. So where they differ is they are battle line. They don't have the grenade keyword, but the unit that has the Phantasm Grenade Launcher on the Sergeant gets smoke and grenades on their unit. And of course, you could take the Cabalite Icon if you want the Sergeant to have better objective control. Would go up to objective control 3 just on their own, which is kind of neat. Now, the weapon options being the same, I'm not going to go through them. I went through them in the Hand of the Archon set, but they're basically the same. You have Power from Pain as an ability, and then their datasheet ability is Cruel Enforcers. So end of your command phase, if they're within range of an objective marker you control, they sticky that objective. It remains under your control until the opponents take it away. Fantastic rule. They no longer do it always when they're inside of a vehicle. So you cannot do this from inside of a Venom anymore. However, the Raider has an ability where you can essentially use this ability while within a Raider transport. So I think having a Raider or 2 with Cabalites inside will be very useful for holding primary when you're trying to play the game, the game of Warhammer. So Sadistic Raiders is their pain ability. So when you're shooting a fight phase, when you select this unit to shoot or fight, you can reroll wound rolls of 1, and if you're attacking a unit on an objective, you get full rerolls to wound. This is in shooting and in combat. Works great with an Archon. Absolutely love a Huskblade Archon in a unit of Cabalites. Rerolling hits because of the Archon. Rerolling wounds because of the Cabalite Warriors on an objective. Reroll ones to wound to try and get those devastating wounds from the Huskblade, as well as maximizing on their ability to have a Dark Lance, a Blaster, a Shredder, just doing all the additional damage when trying to hit or damage enemy units. All in all, fantastic, cool little choice. I absolutely love them. And the best part is they can be split in Venoms, which means you're going to get a ton of value out of these units. And I would take 20, 30 even, and in every detachment. Cabalite Warriors are one of the best battle lines in the game. Moving on to the Witch Cult side of things, we have Lilith Hesperax, who is the, of course, leader of the Cult of Strife, the Succubus of the Cult of Strife. She is still awesome and probably going to make it into every single one of my lists. I absolutely love Lilith. She's movement 8, so she kept the 8-inch movement. She's toughness 3 with a 6-up save but a 4-up invul. She has 4 wounds with her nice leadership of 6 and 1 objective control. Now, she does have fights first, and she confers it to her unit with the Blur of Blades, if she's leading the unit as well, ability. She is a leader that can lead witches. Neat. She is an epic hero that is also a succubus. So in a detachment like the Realspace Raiders, she counts as your succubus in order to get the additional bonus pain tokens, which is kind of cool. Now, her blades, combat weapon, got better. They stayed at 8 attacks, weapon skill 2, strength 3, AP 2, 1 damage. However, they're still anti-infantry 2 and sustained hits 2. They gained precision. They just added precision to Lilith. It's awesome. Like, they just added it to her. She didn't have that before, and they just said, you know what? She can just go assassinate any infantry hero and just laugh while she does it. It's awesome. Now, she has 2 rules, the Blur of Blades, which I talked about. She also has Thrilling Spectacle, so once per battle at the start of the fight phase, you can use her ability. We say go Super Saiyan. Now, it is start of the fight phase, so you kind of have to commit to it. She becomes a 3-up invulnerable save for that phase, and she gets 12 attacks. Awesome. Absolutely love it. She will kill entire squads by herself. It's great. Now, she does have a pain ability called Brides of Death, so in the fight phase, you spend a pain token when her unit fights, and the unit will get +1 strength and +1 AP. Now, this is what she used to give by joining and leading a unit of witches. You have to use a pain token for it now, but it means that she goes to AP 3 and strength 4, and a lot of her witches will go to strength 4, but the special weapons on the Witch squads will go to Strength 5 AP 3 when she's around. And that is an awesome breakpoint. So you're going to have, as when we get to Witches, we'll look at it, you're going to have a lot of Strength 4, Strength 5 good AP attacks from Witches. So her little squad out of a Venom will do some serious work, more than they ever did in the regular index. Moving on, we have the Succubus. Of course, the Succubus herself, not a unit you saw very often in the index. She has movement 8, toughness 3, 6 up save with 4 bimble and 4 wounds. Leadership 7, so a little less leadership than Lilith, and 1 objective control. Now, definitely not as good as Lilith, but also about half the cost in terms of points. Now, she has a leader in the conjoined Witches. She's equipped with only an Archite Glaive and Agonizer, so no longer does she have access to a pistol of any sort. It's just what she comes equipped with in her box, or like her set. The Archite Glaive and Agonizer is 7 attacks now instead of 6. Weapon skill 2, strength 3, AP 2, 1 damage. It's anti-infantry 3, so it remained there, and it gained precision, which is awesome. So it gained precision. It seems like Succubi and Succubuses are designed to go in and just kill little characters from units, or threaten those like 4 wounded or 3 wounded characters a lot more than they did before, without having to use a command point for like an epic to like duel the epic heroes or whatever. Now, she has 2 regular abilities on a datasheet. Storm of Blades, so while leading a unit, the entire unit gains sustained 1. Neat. And Bloody Spectacle. Each time this model makes a melee attack that targets a character unit, so that's a unit that has a character in it, right? You can reroll hit rolls and reroll wound rolls. Awesome. That actually makes her a little bit more versatile against certain... So those 7 attacks are going to come in handy. And in some detachments, like the Witch Cult detachment, +1 damage, right? That's really good. In the Realspace raid, +2 attacks, +2 AP, right? Goes up to 9 AP 4 attacks. Reroll the hits and wounds with precision. So like there is some play here with the Succubus. And each time this model destroys a character model, you also gain a command point. Neat. It encourages you to go in, snipe a character. Now, she's competing with Lilith. I think Lilith is better, but this is like a budget character killer that also gives you a chance to get CP generation. So in a chance that you go in and kill like a lone character, a lone op, or like a little skirmishing character unit, like this could be kind of handy for that command point generation in some matchups. So just something to keep in mind. Now, her ability for pain is Lithe Agility. In your movement phase, when you select this model's unit to advance, or in your charge phase before you make a charge roll, you spend a pain token for her and her unit, and while it's empowered, you can reroll advances and reroll charges. Now, this is good because if you empower a Witch unit in the charge phase, they can also charge after advancing or falling back. This gives you a little bit of extra like oomph if you're trying to get a little further with like an advance roll. Neat. It also means you can disembark her from a transport, put a pain token, reroll the advance roll, right? So say get out of a raider 6 inches, move 8 with a rerollable advance, and then spend a pain token to reroll a charge, and also get advance and charge from the Witches. Like, all in all, not bad for what she is compared to what she was. Does she beat out Lilith Hesperax? I don't think so. But at least they've made her a choice. It's just she's just one of those characters. It's not terrible to take, but not the best, but has a little bit more play than it did before. Speaking of which, let's dive into the Witches. Of course, Witches, the Witch Cult sort of battle line unit. This is our second battle line unit of the book. They are improved from the index, I will say. Are they the best? No. Are they cheap and expendable? Absolutely. But every unit in a Drukhari army is totally expendable. So what makes this unit sort of tick? Let's take a look. Has movement 8. It's toughness 3 with a 6 up save, 1 wound, leadership 7, so it went down, and good old objective control 2, so a decent battle line objective control. Now, they have a 6 up invulnerable save against shooting and a 4 up invulnerable save against melee attacks. So in melee, they have a good invulnerable save against shooting. They die to a stiff breeze. Now, they do have a couple of ranged options, like all of them are equipped with a splinter pistol, right? Same stats, anti-infantry 3, assault pistol, 12 inches, 1 shot each. It hits on 3s. And they have a blast pistol on the sergeant. Now, the Blast Pistol is a 6-inch pistol. One attack hits on 3, strength 8. Now, normally they're AP 3, but the Witch Blast Pistol is AP 4 for some reason. It's been like that since the Index. I do not understand why it's not standardized across the board. It's an AP 4 Blast Pistol, and also D3 damage. Now, in melee, they're all equipped with a Hekatari Blade, which now is 4 attacks each instead of 3, so they all went up an attack from the Index. Awesome. It's strength 3 AP 1, 1 damage, so that hasn't really changed. However, they finally brought back the gladiatorial weapons. Each unit of 10 witches, because you buy them in squads of 10, can have 3 gladiatorial weapons. The gladiatorial weapon is 5 attacks, so that's 1 extra attack, hits on 3, strength 4, AP 2, 1 damage. So basically the power weapons of the sergeants on units, on models in the unit. And then a power weapon on the sergeant, which is 5 attacks as well on a witch, anti-infantry 3+, weapon skill 3, strength 3, AP 2, 1 damage. Which means, if you can split them in a Venom, which you can, say you put a Succubus or Lilith in this squad, you can take 3 gladiatorial weapons and a power weapon sergeant. That's 4 models with 5 attacks each at strength 4, AP 2, 1 damage, or strength 3, anti-infantry 3, AP 2, 1 damage, and then 1 Hekatari Blade, which is 4 attacks. So you're looking at 24 attacks just from the squad. With, say, Lilith, they go to strength 5 or 4, AP 3, 1 damage. Really awesome. Like, this little tiny unit hits way harder than it used to when it only had 3 strength 3 attacks each, or strength 4 AP 1 attacks each. These little units of witches are going to surprise people. Now they have 1 datasheet ability called No Escape, which is each time an enemy unit, excluding monster vehicles, are in engagement range and they fall back, they have to take a desperate escape test. That hasn't changed from the Index. If the enemy unit is battle shocked, it's -1 from the test. Sure. It came in handy sometimes, right? Now, cool to note, though, for their keywords, is they gained the grenade keyword. So no longer do you have to give the sergeant a Phantasm Grenade Launcher. It also means that when you split a Witch squad into a Venom, both halves have the grenade keyword. That is awesome. A little bit of extra damage goes a long way when you're using witches. Their pain ability, though, is the one that takes the cake. This ability is insane. At the start of the charge phase, spend a pain token to empower the unit. While empowered, this unit is eligible to declare charge in a turn in which it advanced or fell back. Oh my goodness. They just gave witches advance and charge all the time for a pain token in any detachment. I will tell you that after playing this codex, this is insane. And it's awesome. Yes, they die super fast, but who cares? The fact that you can get out of a Raider 6 inches, advance, and then just charge every time, or even if you don't want to charge, you can just like advance, wait, shoot the unit you were going to charge anyway, and then just get back into your Venom, like, or whatever it is so strong. Lilith, the threat range of Lilith has just doubled every time in every detachment. I love it. You should see the game I played against Nick. Like, my witch units were flying around the board. Just how much of a threat range they had. All in all, witches, highly improved, super cheap still, splittable in Venoms, OC2. And then they have a whole detachment where they just get better. Extra move, extra like toughness, extra attacks, extra weapon skill, extra ballistic skill and leadership, like a bunch of stuff. So keep an eye on witches. I think I will take 10 in pretty much every list I make to split and have Lilith in one. And I just think that their stonks went way up. So do you want to talk about one of the most iconic units in the Drukhari range? Let's talk about Reaver Jetbikes. They are Jetbikes with blades on them. And they use their Jetbikes as weapons. This is, like, in the lore, they're one of the fastest, hard-hitting, moving units that you'll ever come across, and they're, like, super fast, like, blindingly fast speed, and you never really saw them in the Index Drukhari. Every once in a while, a couple of them will show up to, like, go do objectives and things like that. But other than that, it's a witch cult unit that just happens to be on bikes. They're not necessarily the most durable, but they make it up with speed. And oh my goodness, did they give them a bit of a glow up. Now, they movement 16. They are toughness 4 with a 4-up save, 2 wounds, leadership 7, and 2 OC. So the 2 OC is probably one of the main reasons to take them. Small units of 3 Reaver Jetbikes, which is their minimum squad size, can go around contesting objectives, pulling down sticky. They're very fast. They can screen well, right? They have a 6-up invulnerable save like most units in the army do. Now, they are all equipped with a Splinter rifle, right? So they are all equipped with a 24-inch 2-shot Splinter rifle, same as every Splinter rifle in the book. And 1 in every 3 of them can be equipped with a blaster or heat lance. So blaster is an assault weapon, strength, range 18, 1 attack, hits on 3, strength 8, AP 4, d6 plus 1 damage, or the first instance of us seeing a heat lance, which is an assault weapon, melta 3, 18-inch range, so melta within 9, 1 shot, ability 3, strength 14, AP 4, d6 damage. So in melta range, d6 plus 3 damage. Not a bad profile. Strength 14 means you're also going to be wounding a lot of the big stuff on 3s, which is really handy. Now, they are also all equipped with a Splinter pistol, which kind of comes in handy potentially when you're in combat. But that's about it there. Now, it is important to note that the sergeant, well, there's no longer like a sergeant in the unit. Before, the sergeant could have like a power weapon and stuff. That's not the case anymore. They're all armed the exact same way with blade vanes, which is their bike. It's just the blades on their bike. They use them as weapons. And I love what they did here. They're 4 attacks each, hit on 3, strength 4, AP 1, 1 damage, lance. So a unit of 4 of them has 12 strength 4, AP 1, 1 damage lance attacks, or a unit of 6 has 24 hit on 3s, strength 4, AP 1, 1 damage lance attacks. So they can actually kill stuff in close combat now. Not like Terminators, but they will mess up a small skirmishing unit, which is, I think, exactly what they're designed to do, to go in and kill the small, isolated units of the enemy, or skirmish early on in the enemies in the first couple of turns. Now, they have power from pain, of course. They are a witch cult. They do have fly. They are mounted. And they still have to, like, you know, traverse terrain as normal mounted units do. They have 2 war gear abilities that essentially do a couple of things. But let's talk about their eviscerating flyby. So every time this unit ends a normal move, or they added advance move, you can select an enemy unit that's not a vehicle or monster, and that they moved over, and then roll a d6 for each model in this unit, so up to 6 dice. For every 4+, you take a mortal wound, which means that they fly over mortals, as long as you're not a vehicle or monster. If you have a 6-strong unit, that's up to 6 mortals. That's where the cluster caltrops come in. So 1 in every 3 models can be equipped with a cluster caltrop. So you can reroll 1 of the d6 when you do flybys for each model with a cluster caltrop. So roll 6 dice, rerolling 2 of them if it's a unit of 6. Roll 3 dice, rolling 1 of them if it's a unit of 3. And then a Grav Talon, which is for that model specifically, the weapons get AP2 and lethal hits. That one's, you know, I prefer the cluster caltrops for the mortal wounds, but, you know, tell me if you like the Grav Talon as well. I love that they added assault onto the eviscerating flyby. Like, you can do an assault move and then eviscerating flyby because of their pain ability. Their pain ability is called Matchless Swiftness. So you use this in your movement phase when the unit is selected to advance. While it's empowered, the unit just advances 8 inches. Let that sink in for a bit. It's a 16-inch movement unit that then advances 8 inches. That's 24 inches. So on the way by, they slash attack your unit for 3 up to 6 mortal wounds. They have assault weapons. All their splinter rifles and their heat lances are assault. So they can get that 2 super melta guns into range. And if you're using a detachment like, for example, Reaper's Wager, they can then advance and charge for a CP. Awesome. I was a little sad about the loss of the Beast Pack in the new Codex. You know, I love my Beast Packs. I've been using them all through 10th edition. But this here is the new Beast Pack. 24 inches from your deployment line is Reaver Jail. Now, if you're using a 6-strong unit, you can do it. It's about the same cost as what a Beast Pack was, except it's more efficient at getting the distance you need to pin your opponent in their deployment zone. And you're equipped with melta guns to hopefully blow up a tank or something before they get to move. Awesome. You can use them in that way, or run them in small units to just block movement lanes for tanks and things like that as well. I think this unit is fantastic, and I'm very happy to see it on the board. Let me know what you think about them down below. Moving on, let's talk about Hellions. Talk about another data sheet that got absolutely wild in the Codex. The humble Hellion was like the laughingstock of the index. I started using them towards the end of 10th edition because Reaper's Wager made them able to do damage, access to lethal hits, full rerolls to hit, decent AP buff from a pain token. Let's take a look at how this unit changed and why I think it's one of the best units in the Codex. I think it's excellent. I think you're going to use them in 10s, 5s, everything. So what makes them so good? First, they move really fast. They're 14-inch move. They are mounted, though. I was wishing they'd get some sort of like ignore terrain as they, that sort of thing, but they don't get that. They have toughness 4, 4-up save with a 6-up invul save. So they went up a save from 5 to 4. Nice. They're 2 wounds, leadership 7, and 1 OC. Pretty standard stuff for what you get about a Jetbike, except a little bit slower. Now, where they lie in, like, they have very good damage output for melee. So, they are all equipped with the Splinter Pod, so it's an 18-inch range, sort of like Splinter Rifle, right? Anti-infantry 3+, it's assault. It's also twin-linked, so 2 shots at Ballistical 3, strength 2 AP 0-1 damage, 18 inches. A good anti-infantry gun, 10 shots for a 5-strong unit, 20 shots for a 10-strong unit, hitting on 3s, and then rerolling all wound rolls. Can even put some chip damage on vehicles and monsters if you roll some 6s. Kind of handy. They do not have the grenade keyword, however the Sergeant or the Heliarch can be equipped with a Phantasm grenade launcher that will give them smoke and grenades. You should probably always do this. Gives them the grenade keyword and smoke, so they can even use the be in cover and -1 to be hit in shooting. Not shabby for a unit of Hellions. Now, their main weapon is called the Hellglaive. It is a lance, which just gained lance, sustained 1. So it had sustained 1, gained lance. Amazing. 3 attacks each, hits on 3, strength 4, AP 1, 2 damage. So that didn't change, but it means that Lance allows them to wound things a lot better than they did. Now this combines very well with their pain ability called Battlefield Butchery. So in the fight phase, when you select this unit to fight, you spend a pain token to empower the unit, and they get +1 attack and +1 strength. Now, we were talking about breakpoints when we talked about Incubi. Strength 4 to 5 is a great breakpoint, especially when you add Lance or something like +1 to wound. All of a sudden, they go from 3 to 4 attacks each with sustained hits. Strength 5, AP 1, 2 damage. Like, the AP 1 is a bit of a bummer against stuff like Marines and things that have like an armor contempt or stuff like that, but you can always mitigate those defensive strats with like a good positioning of Malice to get the Vect aura up in range, or to like soften up a unit with say a grenade or a tank shock before you charge in the Hellions. However, this means that they will even wound like some of the larger monsters and vehicles on 4s or 5s thanks to their lance ability, and have a decent amount of attacks to boot. 5 Hellions with 4 attacks each is going to do some damage, and it's way more effective than it was before. That strength 5 is a nice breakpoint, and Lance is just the sugar and icing on top of the cupcake. Now, the Heliarch or Sergeant can have a Splinter Pistol and Power Weapon instead of the Hellglaive, or a Splinter Pistol and a Stun Claw. The Power Weapon is pretty much the power weapon we've seen across every unit. It's anti-infantry 3+, in this case Lance, because it's just a better power weapon. It still keeps Lance because of the Hellions, and sustained hits 1. Sure, so it gains Lance and sustained hits just for being on a Hellion chassis. 4 attacks, strength 3, AP 2, 1 damage, so a little bit of better AP. However, only 1 damage. And then we have the Stun Claw, which is devastating wounds, lance, and precision, so can maybe go in to kill a character. 4 attacks, weapon skill 3, strength 3, AP 1, 1 damage. Sure, could go up to strength 4, and 5 attacks for both the power weapon and the stun claw. Yeah, neat. I prefer the Hellglaive. I like keeping it straightforward and simple, but I'm sure one of you sleuths out there will do the math hammer to tell me which is better, the power weapon or the stun claw versus a Hellglaive into what targets? Like, what is more likely to do damage? You can tell me in the comments down below. Now, as an added bonus, datasheet rule is Skyboard Evasion. So once per turn, when an enemy unit ends a normal, advance, or fallback move within 9, you can make a normal move of d6 inches. They just have a reactive move built in. This is awesome. To add insult to injury, they are a Witch Cult unit, which means they benefit from the Witch Cult detachment, as well as a lot of the different stratagems in the different detachments. Keep an eye out for Hellions. Hellions stonks are definitely up, the same as the Reaver Jetbikes. Something to very much keep in mind. And then we move to the aircraft. 2 main aircraft in the Drukhari Codex, the Razorwing Jet Fighter and the Void Raven Bomber that is my favorite. Now, of course, aircraft have a movement of minimum 20, so it's 20 plus. Both of these aircraft have stealth and deadly demise D3, and they both have a 4-up save and a 6-up invulnerable save. They're leadership 7 and OC 0. Now, the Razorwing Jet Fighter is toughness 8 and 10 wounds, while the Void Raven Bomber is toughness 9 and 12 wounds. Now, they both have different things that they do. The Razorwing Jet Fighter can have disintegrator cannons, which, hey, let's take a look at the disintegrator cannon. New and improved, by the way. Went up 1 strength and 1 AP to strength 6 AP 3. It is 3 attacks at 36 inches. Okay, I don't mind it. Of course, the Razorwing and Void Raven Bomber don't have any sort of Cabal, Cult, or Witch or Coven keywords, so they're just generic Drukhari units. Means they can use the stratagems that they can use in certain detachments. The Razorwing Jet Fighter can have missiles, right? The Monoscythe missile, which is strength 6 AP 1 2 damage, D6 shots blast. The Necrotoxin missiles is D6 plus 3, hits on 3, strength 2 AP 0 1 damage, but anti-infantry 2 blast, so good against infantry. And the Shadowfield missiles, which are blast, strength 7 AP 2, so it went up in AP 1 damage, but only D6 shots blast. You can also have a splinter cannon or a twin-link splinter rifle in the nose. And that's about it. Or it can have 2 Dark Lances. Now, it does have a couple of rules. It's a ground attack craft, so it gets +1 to hit against units that don't have the fly keyword. Sure, so it hits on 2s. Neat. And it has the Power from Pain ability that it can pick a unit that's not a monster vehicle that it's shot at, and that unit is pinned. They suffer -2 to move and -2 to charge. So, for what it's pointed at in the Codex, it's not really worth it. Sadly, the Razorwing Jet Fighter is one of the coolest models out there, but it seems like Games Workshop is trying to phase out aircraft from the game, is what I would say. And I'd say that, they don't really want aircraft to be good, so it's cool, but it is a shame to see the Razorwing Jet Fighter not have sort of a place. I feel if it was just about 30 points cheaper, it would be awesome, but sadly, unless it's me taking a meme list or you taking a meme list or just trying something different, there are probably better ways to spend your points. As for the Void Raven Bomber, however, this thing is still good, even at its cost. Even as expensive as it is still awesome. And I don't think I'd take 2 anymore, but I would probably still take 1. Because of the combination of things. 1, it has amazing weapons. Its armament is incredible. And 2, it has one of the best pain abilities that you can have access to that stack with other abilities and stratagems in different detachments so that you can get the most damage output from your units. So number 1, it can be equipped with either 2 Void Lances, which are 2 shots each, Ballistical 4, Strength 14, AP 4, D6 plus 2 damage. So really good Dark Lances that are plus 14 strength instead of 12, AP 4 instead of 3, right? And it's 4 shots, right? So 2 of 2, 4 super last cannons, or 2 dark scythes. My favorite weapon, which is 24 inches, so a little bit shorter range, 6 shots each, so you're looking at 12 shots from both of them, Ability 3, Strength 8, AP 4, 2 damage. Now, the lack of full rerolls does make it a little less reliable at killing a full unit. However, AP 4, 2 damage is one hell of a drug. Especially because aircraft don't care about footprints. They can just shoot things that they can see, because they have basically old towering rule. So the enemy can't hide, and you can kill the stuff your enemy is staging. It's like having indirect fire, but instead of like Strength 5, AP 0 mortars, it's 2 damage, AP 4 mortars that fly, right? It's cool. It also has missiles. You can equip with missiles. 2 different types. Implosion, which are D3, Strength 9, AP2, 3 damage, or D6, Strength 7, AP2, 1 damage. These are 48 inches and blast, so it's a great way of doing like, oh, I'm going to shoot the missiles at that far target to take advantage of my pain ability, which I'll talk about in a second. And then the D sides are really going to target this infantry unit behind a wall. That's what you were staging to try and kill my unit that's holding this objective, right? So there's lots of different things you can do with a Void Raven Bomber. It is relatively fragile, but in some detachments like Skysplinter Assault, you can give it a 4-up invulnerable save, which is really, really cool. It has its ability, the Void Mine, once per game, which is after this model ends a normal move, you pick a model that it flew over and roll a d6 for each enemy unit within d6 of that model. So there's lots of rolls. On a 4+ for each of those units, they take a d6 mortal wounds. So it's a d6 into a d6 into a d6, and you need like 4-up, followed by 4-up, followed by, it's like, it's very unlikely to do anything. But when it does, it's fun. And, it can be very powerful. Can do like 30 mortal wounds, can do 0 mortal wounds. Like there's no in between there. Now its pain ability is nowhere to hide. In your shooting phase, when you select this unit to shoot, you can empower it with a pain token. After this unit is shot, you select one unit that was hit by one or more of its attacks, and that unit cannot claim the benefit of cover for the rest of the phase. So it ignores cover. I love this rule so much. It's sad that this rule is only on the Void Raven Bomber. However, it's one of the best rules in the game, and they gave it to our flyer. So now you can stack things like +1 AP on Splinter Rifles or on Cabalite Warriors with like Cabalite Cartel. When you talk about the Cabalite Cartel, you can see that. You can do the Carbine Scourge, right, for +1 AP, and then you can do Ignore Cover. And all of a sudden, you've got all these stacking buffs to make sure that your shooting actually does damage. Which is why I think that even at the ridiculous cost that it isn't 300 points yet as of filming. I think that even one Void Raven Bomber can find a place in your Drukhari list. And now we begin taking a look at some of the Coven units, starting with the Homunculus. So the Homunculus is, of course, the Coven character. An F in chat for Urien Rakarth, the Grotesques as well. We hardly knew ye. I'm going to miss Urien Rakarth. Hopefully he comes back in like a cool standalone kit with a new model, or in a kill team or something, or a limited box set. But I'm going to miss Urien Rakarth a lot. So instead, we get the generic Homunculus. Movement 7, T4, 5-up saves. It went up a save. Nice. 6-up invul. Poo. Wounds 5, 7 leadership, and 1 objective control. So not even like good leadership. Just leadership 7. Sure. So his abilities better make up for what he does, in my opinion. He comes equipped with a Stinger pistol, which is anti-infantry 2+, precision pistol, 12 inches with 1 shot, hits on 2 strength, 2 AP 1, D3 damage. So a cool little precision attack. Sure. And his melee weapons, which are basically the melee weapons that Urien Rakarth had. These are good melee weapons, but not on a durable body. They are Homunculus Tools and Scissor Hands, anti-infantry 2+ precision, so really good against infantry. 5 attacks, they hit on 2s, strength 3 AP 1, D3 damage. So pretty handy to take out those pesky characters inside of units. I've used the Homunculus Tools and Scissor Hands. It was literally the exact same weapon that Urien had to take out technomancers and apothecaries and little lieutenants and little units that were just really annoying in units. Now, this unit can be attached to Wracks as a leader, right? And he does have the Feel No Pain 5-up. Now, Wracks lost their 5-up Feel No Pain, but Homunculus has kept it, which is a bit of a shame, because we'll get to Wracks in a second, but I feel like they could use the Feel No Pain. He does have 3 different abilities. 2 of them are the datasheet abilities. So number 1 is Pain Adept. In your command phase on a 4+, you gain a pain token if they're on the battlefield. So just an extra way, you get 1 every command phase for pain tokens. If you have a Homunculus sitting in the back or on the table on a 4+, you get an extra 1. I do like that ability. I think if you are struggling to get command pain tokens, it's a great way to just get an extra pain token here and there. It's not super reliable because it's on a 4+, but on the off chance that you get a couple, it can really sort of jumpstart your ability to do some damage and cascade into more pain tokens, especially when combined with something like a Cronos. Now, his ability is his other ability is called Fear Incarnate. Now, that's an aura. While an enemy unit's within 6, they get -1 leadership. In addition, in the Battle Shock step of your opponent's command phase, any unit that's within 6 that is wounded, so not at starting strength, has to take a Battle Shock test. I like that ability. So it's -1 leadership, and if your opponent is just wounded, they have to take a Battle Shock test even if they're not, like, depleted, like under 50%. That can really throw a wrench in your opponent's plans in, like, a crucial turn. There's some cool enhancements that add to this aura and modify it, and I think it is, like, low-key a cool ability. However, the Homunculus is not necessarily very durable, so throwing him into the middle of the army that way just means he's probably going to die next turn, so there better be a really good reason as to why he just ran into the middle of the board, or ran into the middle of the enemy army, right? Ideally, you kind of want to keep him alive in the back and just use him to farm command points, but he's got a decent combat weapon, so he kind of wants to be in combat. So it's like, and his aura is a 6-inch aura, so it's giving me mixed messages, you know? If you're going to use a Homunculus, how do you best use him? And that's what I've been struggling with as I've been building lists, is how do I best use a Homunculus? Because he wants to do a lot of things, but whichever one he does means that he's not using his other stuff, if that makes sense. Now, his Fleshcraft ability, which is his pain ability, is in your command phase. You can spend a pain token to empower the unit, and you can return D3+1 destroyed bodyguard models. So you can regrow Wracks, kind of like what Urien used to do, but it's in the proper timing now, which is in the command phase. So you can do stuff like string out some Wracks to an objective, your opponent shoots you, kill the ones that are in line of sight so they can't shoot you anymore, and then you bring back D3+1 again and get back onto the objective to hold it, you know? However, a lot of things in this game will kill you in a single shooting activation, so it doesn't work in a lot of circumstances. It only works in circumstances where your opponent, like, misjudges, you know, how much damage they're going to do to you, and then they don't kill everybody in the unit or something like that. All in all, the Homunculus is pretty decent, and some of the enhancements do make the Homunculus a more attractive option. Then we have the last of the battle line units. This time it's the battle line for the Coven, which is the Wracks. Now, Wracks got a bit of a change. They're 2 wounds now. They move 7. They're T4 strength, save 5+, so they gained a saving throw. They have a 6-up invul. They're 2 wounds. Not 1, 2. They leadership 7 and 2 OC. Decent little chunky troops. Now, they don't really have a save to speak of, so those 2 wounds without a feel no pain disappear very quickly. There are a couple of detachments that can keep them alive. The Coven detachment, they'd be -1 to be wounded. The Realspace raid detachment, they have the -1 damage, right? There's like ways to try and keep them alive. However, Wracks did get a bit of a change. Their damage output went way up. So like, they're like not supposed to be, I think, super durable. They're supposed to do a lot more damage than they did and sort of like be a little bit more annoying to kill than like 5 Cabalites or 10 Cabalites. But I feel like they've brought them more in line with the hard-hitting, like lightning fast, go in, strike hard, and leave with a little bit more chunk to them, but without making them super chunk. Now, that's shown in like their melee weapons, because their melee weapons got a super boost. They are all equipped with twin torturer tools. So before they just had 2 attacks each at strength 3, that was anti-infantry 4+. That's it, with like 0 AP. Their weapons got a huge boost. They're now 2 attacks each, twin-linked anti-infantry 4+, so they got twin-linked. Strength 4 AP1, which is very good into what? toughness 3 troops, little nurgling beasts, like things like that, like Ripper Swarms. Like we actually have something that's not just like, oh, strength 3 in combat, that's anti-infantry 3+, that doesn't help against mounted or anything like that. Twin-linked, AP 1, strength 4, 2 attacks each. That is a big change. However, that combined with their pain ability, which is experimental enhancements. So you can empower this unit in the fight phase, and you actually get to pick one of 2 things. They each get 3 attacks instead of 2. So now they go to 3 attacks each, twin-linked, strength 4, AP 1, not bad. Or each of their weapons becomes hazardous, and they get 4 attacks each. So you double the number of attacks. So a unit of 10, right, Wracks, with twin torture tools will throw 40 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 4, AP 1, twin-linked, which, do the math, is a lot better than what it was for a pain token. I do like their damage output in combat quite a lot. Now, they kept a lot of their special weapons. So for every 5 models in the unit, you can have a Hex Rifle and Torturer tool, you can have a Liquefier and Torturer tool, you can have an Ossifactor and Torturer tool, and you can have a Stinger Pistol and Torturer tool. If you take that option, each of their Torturer tools has the same impact, except they lose twin-linked, right? So you can give the ranged weapons and lose all the twin-linked, which is fine. And then the Akathist Torturer tools can be a power weapon and torture tool. So you can give the Akathist a power weapon as well. But then again, power weapon's not extra attacks, so you get to pick one or the other as well. Cool. Interesting. You know what I mean? Like nothing too crazy, right? Now the Hex Rifle, their ranged weapon, is one that got a bit of a boost. It's still a heavy precision weapon. Range 36, hits on 3s. It's now strength 8 instead of strength 6. It's AP 2, 3 damage. So it went up 2 strength. Sure. Like every once in a while they would do 3 damage to something. But it is precision. The Liquefier gun is anti-infantry 3+ now. So Liquefiers are now strength 4 AP 1. Does not ignore cover. Torrent, yes. D6 hits at 12 inches, but anti-infantry 3. So good against heavier infantry. Neat. Cool little boost to the Liquefier gun. The Ossifactor stayed pretty much the same. Anti-infantry 4+, dev wounds, right? Range 24, hits on 3s, strength 2, -2, 2 damage. So pretty much the same as it was. And then the Stinger Pistol, which is anti-infantry 2+ pistol. And now I would probably never take the Stinger Pistol, because if you do, you lose the twin-linked on the blades. And I believe the twin-linked would be better than a single pistol. But I like the Liquefier gun, I like the Ossifactor, I like the Hex Rifle. Now, the datasheet ability for the Wracks is a Torturer's Craft. In your shooting and fight phase, after the unit attacked, you select a unit that was hit by one or more of those attacks, and they have to take a Battle Shock test. So you can do long-range Battle Shock tests with like just the little Hex Rifle or the Ossifactors, right? And you can do close combat Battle Shock tests. So there's lots of ways to try and generate pain tokens, and Wracks is one of them. Now, if a Homunculus is in the unit and they're in close combat, and then now that aura that the Homunculus has is a little bit more effective in the sense that they're now at -1 leadership, they took a Battle Shock test, they might not be able to like use a stratagem to try and kill your Wracks, etc., etc., etc. So I do see the potential in Wracks, but I've played them in a couple of games, and every time I've played them, they have just died way too quickly. And I think it's because I want to use them like grotesques, and that's not their role anymore. I think their role is more to like maybe put them in a raider, yeet the raider forward, get out, and just make 40 twin-linked attacks to something in close combat and try wipe out a little skirmishing unit or something like that, cause a couple of Battle Shock tests potentially, and see about generating some pain tokens early in the game, ready for that go turn. So let me know what you think about Wracks, because I have my preconceived notions and the practice that I've had, but I'd like to know what you think as well. The Talos. Oh, I absolutely love Talos. They're one of the most iconic little pain engines, all the way since they were like little scorpions, you know, little metal, hunks of metal and pewter, to the really cool kit that they do now. The Talos is one of the pain engines of the Homunculi. So I like the changes, right? There's been quite a few changes to this data sheet, and where does it fit in to like your Drukhari force? It is a movement 7, toughness 7, 3-up save with a 6-up invul, 7 wounds with leadership 7, and 2 objective control. The unit is 1 or 2 Talos. So 1 little Talos or 2 little Talos. I like running them in 2s mainly because they are a nice buddy-butt system for themselves. They are deadly demise 1 because they're a little vehicle. They do fly, so they can like target things like aircraft in combat and stuff. And they have a 5-up feel no pain. So 7 wounds with a 5-up feel no pain, decent armor, an okay invulnerable, like an invulnerable save, means that, you know, they're a little chunky. They're one of the chunkiest things that we have at our disposal. Now, they have a tail weapon, and this weapon can be one of many weapons. My favorite is the Haywire, the twin-linked Haywire blaster, because the meta, at least when I'm recording this, has a lot of vehicles in it, and I love Haywire. However, you can equip them with a Stinger Pod, which is like 2d6 strength 5 shots, or the Twin Haywire Blaster, which is still anti-vehicle 4+, devastating wounds, twin-linked, right? Range 24, 2 shots each, strength 3 -1, 3 damage. However, one of the cool things to note is that all of the weapons here are ballistic skill 3. So the Talos went from hitting on 4s to hitting on 3s. That's a cool little upgrade, even though like they lost 4 rerolls. So yes, you know, it's a little bit worse than like 4s with 4 rerolls statistically. But hitting on 3s is pretty good, especially when a lot of the time sometimes you couldn't afford to give them the pain token anyway. They do have access to the twin heat lance. So like the one on the Reaver Jetbikes, the heat lance is assault, melta 3, but it's twin linked. It's only 1 shot from each Talos with this at 18 inches. Strength 14 -4 d6 damage. It can be equipped with an armed weapon of twin liquefier gun that's on one of the arms. So it is a liquefy gun, anti-infantry 3+, torrent twin linked, and it is d6 hits, strength 4, AP 1 damage. But it's twin linked, so I kind of really like that one. And the Splinter Cannon. So the Splinter Cannon is like that heavy bolter, anti-infantry 3, sustained hits 1, twin linked, and it's 3 shots per tail, but it's twin linked, hitting on 3s, strength 3, AP 1, 2 damage, so good against like infantry targets. Now, you can have one of the tail weapons, and then in melee, it has options to sort of like has 2 arms, and it can kind of pick and choose what weapon options it wants. Now, one of the arms can be a Chain Flail, which is 8 attacks to hit on 3, strength 6, AP 1 damage. I haven't really used Chain Flails for a while. I used to love them back in like 8th edition. But in 10th, I've really enjoyed the Gauntlet, the Talos Gauntlet. So in this case, it's 5 attacks, hits on 4s, strength 9, AP 2, 3 damage. So went up to strength 9. That's pretty cool. And it is AP 2, 3 damage, so decent volume of 3 damage. However, hitting on 4s does mean that it's going to struggle against like -1 to hit close combat targets. It can have a macro scalpel, which is 5 attacks, weapon skill 3, strength 7, AP 2, 2 damage, so it hits a little better, not as strong, not as much damage. And if it has 2 macro scalpels, it has a rule called Devoted to Pain, where both macro scalpels gain the twin linked ability. So if you can have macro scalpel, so 5 twin linked attacks, so hitting on 3, strength 7, AP 2, 1 damage, or 2 damage, twin linked, or a Talos Gauntlet and what I prefer, the twin liquefier gun. So that's my loadout, is twin Haywire Blaster on the tail, macro scalpel, Talos Gauntlet, and twin liquefier gun. Now, one of the arms can be an Ichor Injector, which is just extra attacks, which is just 1 attack that hits on 2s, strength 8, AP 2, d6 damage. So like a little pokey attack, last cannon, I guess. But I've never really found use for it. I much prefer having more guns on the arms itself. Now, it has a second datasheet ability called Torture Device. So each time this unit destroys an enemy unit, you gain an additional pain token. You kill a unit, you get a pain token for killing. If a Talos unit killed it, you get an additional pain token. So this is essentially what the Wracks used to do back in the day, and now it's just something that the Talos get to do. And their ability is called Mindless Killing Machines. It is a aura. It is a pain ability. You use it at the start of the fight phase, and while this unit is empowered, it will fight on death on a 2+, which is kind of handy. If your opponent charges your Talos with something big and scary, you can at least attack them back with a pain token pretty much every time to sort of punish them from taking down your Talos. There you have it, Talos. I do like it. I think they work well in the Coven detachment and in something like Reaper's Wager, where they get like reroll ones to hit, advance, shoot, and charge, like all this sort of stuff. But there are some really cool places to put them, like -1 damage in Realspace Raid, etc., etc. So let me know what you think down below about the beloved Talos. Moving on, we have the Cronos. So the Cronos is on the same chassis as the Talos. Movement 7, T7, 3-up save, 6-up invul, 7 wounds, leadership 7, 2 objective control. However, the role of the Cronos is not really a damage output. It's more support. It can have 1 or 2 in a unit, and each Cronos is equipped with a Spirit Siphon, which is an Ignore Cover Torrent Flamer, D6, range 12, strength 5, AP 1, 1 damage, so Ignore Cover is really good though. And each one can be equipped with a Spirit Vortex, which is a blast weapon at 18 inches that ignores cover, D6 shots, hits on 3s, strength 5, AP 1, 1 damage. Now, the Cronos got a boost to its melee weapon. It went up to, the tentacles are now anti-infantry 2+, so it can actually punch things in combat, which is really cool. 6 attacks instead of 4, hits on 3s instead of 4s from back in the day, strength 5 instead of, strength 5, AP 1 instead of AP 0, 1 damage. I love the fact that the Cronos can actually do a little bit of damage in combat now. It's just chip damage, but it's nice to see the change. However, it has 3 different abilities. The first is its Pain Engine Aura. So every time you spend a Pain token to empower a friendly unit with a 9, roll a d6, you add 1 to the result if 1 or more models in this unit are not equipped with a Vortex, and on a 5+, you get a Pain token. So you have a value proposition here. Keep the blast weapon off the Cronos, and then every time you use a Pain token with a 9, you get it back on a 4+, which is what it already does now, or put the blast weapon on the Cronos for some more damage output and get it back on a 5+. I really like the 4+. I think most of my Cronoses in my armies will not have Vortexes, just so I can get those extra Pain tokens early in the game to get my damage output up as we go. Sorry, it's only 2 datasheet abilities. One of them is the Pain one. And then we have the Pain Parasite Pain ability. So in your shooting a fight phase, when you select this unit to shoot a fight, you can spend a Pain token. And while empowered, after it's resolved its attacks, if it killed any models, the unit can heal 3 wounds. If every model in the unit is at full wounds when you do this, you can return a model from the dead with 3 wounds. So it basically can regenerate the unit. So you're kind of encouraged to take a unit of 2 Cronos, right? Which is kind of fun. Which means you can like, try and heal it up and then bring it back by killing like little chaff units and stuff like that. I've used it a few times already, and I was like, oh, my Cronos is now wounded. I'm going to attack you in combat with a Pain token. I kill a model, and now I heal 3 wounds. It's kind of cool. I like it. It's like a cute little way of making sure that Cronos is just annoyingly alive for a little longer, and I really like it. And the fact that it works in shooting and in combat is hilarious. Overall, Cronos, I think, is a very useful choice for a Drukhari army, and I think you're still going to be seeing them quite a bit. Let's take a look at my Mandrakes, one of my favorite units. Also got a fantastic glow up in this codex. They are another Blade for Hire unit, so any detachment that affects Blade for Hires will affect them. They are movement 8, T3, 7 plus save with a 5-up invul, which is the same as before. They have 1 wound. They have a leadership 7 and 1 OC. Now, their ability comes in their fact that they're a great toolkit piece for your army. They have Deep Strike, now finally. They have Infiltration, and they have Stealth. They also have a cool datasheet ability called Shade Weavers. This unit cannot be targeted by ranged attacks unless the enemy model is within 18 inches. They get 18-inch lone up. My Mandrakes used to sit at the back of the board, screening the back of the board, and their bane of their existence was like mortars and carnivore indirect havoc launchers and, smart missile systems. No longer. My Mandrakes are going to survive, and they're going to do the thing that they need to do, which is live and screen and never get shot. And then they're going to come in late game and win me the game. And I love it. And I love that they've made it easier for my Mandrakes to do this. Now, their Bale Blast got a bit of a boost. That's their shooting attack. It's an 18-inch gun, 2 attacks, hits on 3, strength 5, AP 1 now instead of AP 0. Neat, 1 damage with Assault, which they had before, Devastating Wounds, which they had before, and they just added Ignore Cover. That's right, Ignore Cover, and AP 1. Pretty snazzy. And then what they did is they added AP 1 to their combat attacks, so their Glimmer Steel Blade is 3 attacks, hits on 3, strength 5, AP 1, 1 damage, and added Devastating Wounds in combat as well. I'm not going to say no. Mandrakes are awesome. So let's take a look at their pain ability. Before they could uppy downy for free. Now you need to use their pain ability. So Fade Away is pain at the end of your opponent's fight phase. If this unit's not within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units, you can spend a pain token to empower it. Each time you do, remove the unit from the battlefield and place it into strategic reserves. Now, at first I was like, oh, I'm going to have to use a pain token to use this ability. However, number one, it's no longer uppy and then you have to bring them down. You pay a pain token, put them up in the sky, and then they can stay there until turn 5. They no longer have to come down right away. And I love this. I absolutely love that I can hold them in reserve. I still think I'm going to take at least 2 units of 5 in every single list. But the more I've been playing with them, the more I want to take a 5-strong unit and a 10-strong unit. Because the 10-strong unit for late game rapid ingress with all of their crazy Bale Blasts and combat attacks could actually turn the tide of battle and win me a game. I think Mandrakes are going to be a staple in every list. They don't look like much. The datasheet is pretty simple. But in terms of playing the missions and playing the games, they are one of the best units that we have access to as Drukhari. Let's dive in to one of my favorite units, the Scourge, now with heavy weapons. So the Scourge have been split up into 2 different units, Scourge with heavy weapons and Scourge with carbines. Scourge with heavy weapons are still incredible. They still have the airborne evasion, so after shooting, they can move 6 inches, so they still kept shoot and scoot. They still have access to every single weapon combination that you want. Dark Lances and Haywire Blasters being, in my opinion, the best version of the weapon options. You can still have 4 in a unit and the Sergeant, so you don't have to mix and match the weapons. I think that is great. The unit can no longer be more than 5 in both capacities, so Scourges come in units of 5. That's it. They also kept their reroll hit rolls. So I was really worried that with the changes to pain tokens, they would change the effectiveness of Scourge. They did not. They kept Winged Strike as a pain ability in their shooting phase. You spend a pain token, they get full rerolls to hit, making Scourge just as effective at shooting as they were before. They are going to be a staple in every Drukhari list worth their salt. Prove me wrong. They move 14, they're T3, with a 4-up save and a 5-up invul, because they are like basically aspect warriors. 1 wound with a leadership 7 and 1 OC. They can have 4 heavy weapons between blasters, dark lances, haywire blasters, a heat lance, which we talked about before. You can also have shredders, right? Or splinter cannons. The Sergeant, the Solarite, can have a power weapon, which is anti-infantry 3+, 3 attacks, strength 3, AP 2, 1 damage, and a potential blast pistol. However, I like keeping the Shard Carbine on my Sergeant so that after they've shot, they can then move, and because it has assault, it means you could like move and advance the Scourge, still shoot the carbine, and then still use the airborne evasion rule to move an additional 6 inches. They have fly, they're infantry, they have grenades, they're also blades for hire, so in any detachment that affects blades for hire, they can benefit from all of those really cool abilities. I really, really love Scourge with heavy weapons. 2 units go in my list. One of them tends to have a Dark Lance, so 4 Dark Lances in 1 unit, 4 Haywires in another unit. Unless I'm playing in Cabalite Cartel, where I've been practicing with 2 units, with 4 Dark Lances in each one to take advantage, or better advantage, of the contracts as well. We'll get to those detachments soon. The second unit of Scourge is the Scourge with Shard Carbines. Now, this is a brand new sort of like unit in the sense that it gives you a whole other tactical choice. I really like this tactical choice they give you. So the stats are the same as the regular Scourge, right? Movement 14, toughness 3, 4-up save, 5-up invul, 1 wound, Leadership 7 with 1 objective control. They also have Deep Strike, like the Heavy Weapon Scourge, and they have Power from Pain. Now, the difference with this is their weapon loadout, right? So they can only have 1 blaster or shredder in the unit instead of 4 heavy weapons. One of their carbines can be equipped as a special weapon, and then the Solarite can be equipped with a variety of different weapon options like the power weapon or the blast pistol. The power of the Shard Carbine Scourge lies in their tactical bonus that they give your army. So Murderous Crossfire is their base datasheet ability. After the unit has shot, you pick a unit that was hit by one of their attacks, and then for the rest of the shooting phase, the rest of your army gets +1 AP against it. Very good rule to increase your damage output. I love Scourge with Shard Carbines for this rule alone. One of the reasons why I prefer taking the Shredder over the Blaster, because the Shredder is D6 automatic hits, right, at 18 inches, which is the same range as the Carbine, which means you can always guarantee that you're going to hit something to then activate the Murderous Crossfire special rule. Now, another option here is they have the Power from Pain ability, Swooping Descent. In your movement phase, you spend a pain token to empower the unit, and while it's empowered, when you set it up from Deep Strike, they can come in more than 6 inches away from the enemy. They finally gave us a 6-inch Deep Strike. Fantastic. It means that a unit of these is going in my list, and I'm going to use it for the Murderous Crossfire, or if I need to go do a press buttons or something like that, they can drop down and press buttons in my opponent's deployment zone. It's hard to screen against them. They can like really get up nice and close and create a screen to stop my opponent from running into me, that sort of thing. I love Scourges with carbines. They're incredible, and I highly recommend them. They do not have the shoot and scoot as their heavy weapon cousins, but I think that their ability to enhance the damage output of the rest of the army, especially when combining stratagems and detachment abilities, is going to be very useful. And just having that 6-inch Deep Strike in your back pocket is going to be invaluable for winning games of Warhammer. Let's talk about the humble Ravager, the gunboat of the Cabal. So the Ravager is essentially a gunboat. If you're a Space Marine player, you would recognize it more as a Ravager. It does not have a transport capacity. It has 3 heavy weapons. Now, the heavy weapons can be Dark Lances or Disintegrator Cannons or any combination of the two. So 3 and 2, 1 and 1, and 1, whatever it is. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Now, Dark Lances, main anti-tank weapon. 1 shot, hits on 3, strength 12, AP3, D6 plus 2 damage at 36 inches, or the Disintegrator Cannon, which is now strength 6, AP3, 2 damage at 3 shots a pop. So you can have up to 9 strength 6, AP3, 2 damage shots from a Ravager, or 3 Dark Lances. Like, most people like the Dark Lances. However, in certain detachments, like the Cabalite Cartel, when you get sustained hits, lethal hits, +1 ballistic skill, +1 to wound, like that sort of thing, you can really get kind of crazy with, say, a Disintegrator Ravager, right? You can also make it lone up in certain detachments. It has Deep Strike as well, so it can come in from reserve and get some good angles. The Ravager is a pretty solid gunboat, and something that should not be overlooked. It has a decent movement of 14, it's toughness 9, has a 4-up save with a 6-up invul, 11 wounds, so it's a little tougher than a Raider. It's still paper thin though. Leadership 7, and it is 3 objective control. So kind of neat to like just throw onto objectives or use as screens early on in the game to force your opponent to play the game. It does have Blade Veins in combat, which are 3 attacks that hit on 4, strength 6, AP 1, 1 damage, so they gained an AP in combat, so you don't have to pain token it anymore. And it does get damaged once it has reached 1 to 4 wounds remaining. Now, this unit does get kind of neat against some things. It has a rule called Eradicate the Foe. So every time it makes an attack that targets a unit that it's at starting strength, you can reroll hit rolls. So it's sort of encouraged to do the first volley, where you can be like, you know what, let's do a first volley with Ravagers against stuff that hasn't been wounded to get full rerolls to hit. Sure. It used to be just reroll 1s, now it's just reroll all hit rolls against stuff that is not wounded. So kind of needing to like, oh, I need to like shoot at that rhino first or whatever. So, okay, it's not bad for a rule. Not the best later in the game though when stuff has already been wounded. And then it has Agonizing Suppression as its pain ability. So you can empower the unit in your shooting phase. You pick a unit that was hit by one or more of its attacks, and that unit will be suppressed, and they'll be -1 to hit for every attack they make until the next shooting phase for the Ravager. Okay, neat. Can kind of like suppress a knight or something, make them -1 to hit, etc., etc. Kind of handy when you look at it. But overall, the Ravager, a solid gunboat choice and good fire support. Of course, it is Cabal, so keep that in mind for anything that you're looking at that might use Cabal as a keyword, something that can be really useful. Let's move on to one of my favorite transports in the entire game of Warhammer, the Venom. The Venom is so good and a pivotal transport in any Drukhari list. If you're a brand new Drukhari player and you're just getting into it, make sure you get yourself a couple of Venoms. They are invaluable. I love Venoms, and I owe a lot of my success in the tabletop and in tournaments to the Venom and what the Venom brings to the table. So it's a 14-inch move transport that carries 6 models. It is a firing deck 6 as well, so 6 models from inside can shoot. It is Deadly Demise 1, Deep Strike, and Stealth, right? So it only has T6 is a 4-up save and a 6-up invul, so pretty much paper thin, with 6 wounds, leadership 7, and 1 objective control. Nothing really crazy to write home about. It can be equipped with, it has a splinter cannon equipped, which is anti-infantry 3, sustained 1, the heavy bolter, 3 shots, 36 inches, AP 1, 2 damage. So cool. And it can have a second one of those or have a twin splinter rifle. So I highly recommend the 2 splinter cannons. And it's equipped with blade veins that are only strength 5 instead of strength 6, unlike the Ravager or the Raider. Now, where the Venom comes in is its versatility and how it helps your army be more versatile. This model has a transport capacity of 6 Drukhari infantry that are not jump pack. Before the battle, at the start of the Declare Battles formation step, you can select 1 Cabalite or Wych unit that has not been split. If you do that, that unit is split into 2 units, containing as equal a number of models as possible. When splitting a unit in this way, make a note of which models form each of the 2 new units. One of these units must start in the transport, and the other one can start in another transport or deployed as normal. So I love that you can grab your 10 strong Cabalite squads and Witches and split them into multiple 5 strong units, and I will pretty much do this every single time. I love this rule. It is very powerful. Then it has the rule called Aerialists. This is your ability to grab a unit that's wholly within 6 of your Venom, and they jump back into the Venom. So you can hide behind a wall, get out, do something, fight, charge, shoot, and then as long as your Venom is close enough, you just jump back in the Venom, and your opponent cannot interact with you. Stupidly powerful rule. Almost feels like cheating if you do it right. At the end of the fight phase, you can select 1 unit wholly within 6 of this model. If that unit could embark within this model, it does so now. Amazing. Amazing. I love it. It's awesome. It's so good. It's so good. I really like it. I can't explain how good that is. You have to just see it to understand why that's so good. And last but not least, it gained a cool pain ability. So it's called Rapid Deployment. So in your movement phase, you empower this unit with a pain token, and you can disembark the unit that's inside after advancing the Venom. So you can advance the Venom, try and move up to 20 inches away and disembark the unit. And then the unit can act as normal. It can't charge, but it can shoot, do an action, contest an objective, and then even potentially get back in to the Venom afterwards as well, right? So really cool to just get the units inside of those Venoms where you need them, and excellent to contest objectives and stop your opponent from playing the game or scoring points. All in all, the Venom is one of the best transports in the game. It's cheap, it's small, you can hide it easily, and it's just pivotal at making sure you have tons of units. I love Venoms. And the last transport we're going to look at, and the last datasheet in the book, is the Raider. That's right, the Raider is the iconic pirate ship transport for the Drukhari faction. And it is probably one of the most complicated data sheets of the entire book. Now, that is because the Raider is designed to enhance the units that are inside of it. Now, it doesn't have any sort of like Cabal, Cult, or Coven keywords, so it's just a Drukhari keyword. It is a 14-inch moving, toughness 8, save 4+, 6 up invul, 10 wound, leadership 7, OC 2 vehicle. It is Deadly Demise D3, Deep Strike, and Firing Tech 11, so everybody inside can kind of shoot out of it. It does carry 11 infantry models that are not jump pack models. Now, it can be equipped with 1 Dark Lance and or 1 Disintegrator Cannon. We kind of went over those at the Ravager. I like doing the Dark Lance personally, but in like Cabalite Cartel, the Disintegrators are not a bad choice if you're running Cabal. Because this doesn't have Cabal keyword, you're probably better off just running Lances, regardless of that. Now, its melee weapon is kind of neat. It has Blade Veins and Chain Snares. So essentially, it has 3 plus D3 attacks. They hit on 4, strength 6, AP 1 damage. Essentially, it's got like more attacks than normal than the transport does or a little vehicle. It's just like a cool little iconic thing, being like, there's chains that hang underneath that'll, pick you up. Which I think is hilarious that they like represented this with like extra attacks. Where the Raider comes into play is that it has a wet rule called Vanguard of the Dark City. So at the start of your command phase, you select one of the abilities, and until the start of your next command phase, this model has that ability. And it has 4 different abilities. These are cool. So, Ether Sails. If there's a Drukhari unit embarked, you can reroll advance and charge rolls to this model. Cool. I like that for the first couple of turns, maybe to get into position, right? It did lose its auto 6 advance, which is something that I am going to miss, but rerolling advances is okay. Rerolling charges, okay, sure. The second one is Visions of Butchery. While one or more rack units are embarked within this model, for each rack model embarked, you add +1 to the attack characteristic of this model's blade veins and chain snares. This is probably one of the most hilarious rules I've ever read for a transport. So there are, say, 10 racks in this Raider. So you get 13 attacks plus D3, up to 16 strength 6, AP 1 damage attacks. That is hilarious to me. Now, we talked about racks earlier. Racks are probably better off going in and fighting, right, and doing the damage themselves. But say you had to fall back and embark back into the Raider or something, you can go in and, like, in Skysplinter Assault especially, imagine doing a tank shock, then attacking with up to 16 attacks, and then doing Vicious Blades, which does mortal wounds. Like, hilarious. Like, it's little combat Raiders of Death with racks, which is really funny. Then we have Masters of the Shadowed Sky. So that is your sticky objectives with Cabalites inside. So essentially, at the end of your command phase, if this model is in range of the objective you control, and you have a Cabalite Warrior unit, so specifically Cabalite Warrior unit embarked, this objective marker remains under your control until your opponent takes it away. So it's essentially sticky with Cabalite. So you cannot do it from inside of Venoms anymore. You need Raiders to do it, but it gives you sticky objectives from inside of a vehicle. Very powerful with something like a scout move up with Arc Raider and Reaper's Wager, still to sticky your expansion objective, and then move on from there with the Cabalite Warriors, etc., etc. The last one is Speed of the Kill. This is by far my favorite, and is why I'm putting a Raider in my lists. Each time a Witch's unit disembarks from this model, excluding emergency disembarkation, models in that Witch unit must be set up wholly within 6 inches of this model. So you get a 6-inch disembarkation with Witches. That is increasing the threat range of your Witches. Considering Witches can always advance and charge with a Pain token, with their Pain ability, it is awesome. The ability to just yeet a Witch unit far up the board and to go punch something is so powerful. I love Raiders for that rule alone, and there's so many really cool things that you can do with that as well. Now, let's talk about its Pain ability. So in your shooting phase, when you select this model to shoot, you can spend a Pain token to empower the model, and while empowered, while units are embarked inside of this, Each time a model makes an attack with a ranged weapon that has the anti-ability, you can reroll hit rolls. Essentially, you can put a bunch of Cabalite warriors inside here with splinter rifles, and they have the anti-infantry keyword, so they just get to reroll hit rolls. Cool. So you can put, like, say you have 2 Cabalite warrior squads, and you want to, like, 10 strong. Then you have 2 Venoms, and you split the 10 strongs into 4 5 strong. And then you put gun Cabalites, like Dark Lance, Blaster, Shredder, and 2 rifles, or the Sergeant and a rifle in a Venom. The same in the other Venom. And then inside of the Raider, you put 4 Cabalites with rifles and 1 with a Splinter Cannon. What do they all have? Anti-infantry weapons, anti-weapons. Pay 1 pain token for the Raider to now have a little gunboat that has 2 Splinter Cannons, 8 Splinter Rifles, and a Dark Lance. And then, say, shoot it at a unit that just got hit by a Scourge Carbine, so -1 AP, or +1 AP, and, say, a unit that got hit by a Void Raven Bomber to ignore cover, right? And all of a sudden, you've got rerolling hits, AP1, ignoring cover, 16 shots from rifles, and 6 Splinter Cannon shots, and a Dark Lance or Disintegrate Cannon. All in all, a fantastic, fantastic use of that as well. This was the datasheet abilities, or the datasheets. Let's take a look as well at all of the detachments, and that will be essentially, then you can really see how these units fit into those detachments, and really cool ideas should start a-flowing. Let's take a look at our first detachment, the Realspace Raiders, a classic detachment that comes back to us from the Index. And this is a detachment that is essentially designed to represent all the different factions of the Drukhari. Witch Cult, Covens, Cabalites, Blades for Hire, they can all essentially participate in what you do here. So with that, you've got the Alliance of Agony as a detachment rule. Essentially, it gives you more pain tokens. So for every Homunculus and Rack unit that you have, you get a pain token. For every Witch and for every Witch unit and Succubus that you get an extra 2 more pain tokens. For every Archon and Cabalite unit you get 2 more pain tokens. So you start the game with 6 pain tokens if you have all of these. I played a game against Richard Siegler with this detachment, and I tell you that I started with 6 pain tokens, got 1 on my first command phase for 7, and I didn't tap in to the 6 that I started with ever. I literally played the whole game, didn't even touch the 6 that I began with. Now, it gives you some ability to use some cool options early in the game, but at high-level competitive play, you're not really trying to use all your pain tokens early. You want to really kind of play the game and like use them in the mid-game with like a hammer blow turn. So, nice to have the ability to use lots of pain tokens early, but not necessarily absolutely needed, in my opinion. Let me know what you think down below. I do like this detachment, though. As for enhancements, we have Dark Vitality, which basically empowers the bearer and their unit permanently. Labyrinthine Cunning, which gives you a pain token. You can spend a pain token, gain a CP, or roll a 4+ to gain a CP. That one was insanely good, and I used it. Every single list that I've built has this in this detachment. Eye of Spite makes a Succubus better, extra attacks, and extra AP. And last but not least, the Crucible of Malediction for Homunculus to do the leadership bomb that we know and love, except it's, Psychers now just take 3 mortal wounds if they fail the Battle Shock test instead of D3. All in all, pretty handy. You know what I mean? It just is what it is. As for stratagems, Insensible to Pain. So any Coven unit is -1 damage. So pretty good for Talos, Wracks that are now 2 wounds, Cronos, that sort of thing. Fighting Shadows for 1 CP in your opponent's shooting phase or fight phase. You use any Drukhari unit that's not a Homunculus Coven unit. They're -1 to be hit. So lightning fast reactions is like what we like to call that. 1 CP for Instinctive Spite. So that's up to 2 Drukhari Battle Line units or 1 other Drukhari unit. And you can spend a pain token. So if you shoot something that's half strength, you get +1 to hit. If you spent a pain token, you get +1 to wound as well. And that's in the shooting or fight. and start of the shooting a fight. So it's like you have to sort of commit to try and like kill a unit that's weakened, which is kind of neat. I do like that stratagem quite a lot, but it's a very specific stratagem. Dark Harvest is 1 CP, 2 rack units or 1 other Drukhari unit from your army. Gets lethal hits in the fight phase, but you have to use it at the start of the fight phase. Good for like just trying to do damage in combat against tougher targets. Eager for the kill. At the start of your movement phase, 2 witches or 1 other Drukhari unit can auto advance 6 inches. Very useful if you have witches on foot, because they, with a paint token, can advance and charge. So then they go 8 plus just straight 6 plus a charge. The thing is, you cannot use it while you're in a transport because it's at the start of your movement phase. But you can use it on other units. I found myself using it on Wracks or Cabalite warriors or Mandrakes to get them into better positions in order to contest objectives, put up screens. Like, it's a very useful stratagem. And last but not least, Raid and Fade. 2 CP for 2 Cabalite warrior units or 1 other Drukhari unit that's not a Scourge or an aircraft at the end of the shooting phase, and they can make a 6-inch normal move. This allows them to embark into transports. The implication of this stratagem is insane, and we're going to see it more and more. That means you can have 2 large bricks of Cabalite warriors and raiders, for example, get out, shoot with Archons inside, reroll hits, reroll wounds with their pain abilities, and then use 1 CP because the Archon has -1 CP, right? And then bounce them back in to the raiders, as an example. Or use it with a Hand of the Archon or a whatever, right? And it allows you to use larger units like that, or even get them into position to like screen even more if you need to stop the enemy from going anywhere, which can be exceptionally powerful. All in all, the Realspace Raiders, I think, is a fantastic detachment that showcases a bit of everything. And I love that these stratagems have access to not just the units that they say. They have flexibility. There's like 2 of the unit that we want you to use it on, or 1 other unit. And that amount of flexibility means that I think for a beginning Drukhari player, somebody who does never play Drukhari before, this is a fantastic start, run-of-the-mill, collect a few models and play the game and sort of get a feel for how this faction should play. Okay, let's dive into Skysplinter Assault. So Skysplinter Assault is essentially very much the same to what we got added to the index once Games Workshop found out that we were having a hard time with the original Realspace raid. It is almost identical to what we had in the index, which is not a bad thing. A couple of subtle changes, but if you like Skysplinter Assault in the index, you're going to find a lot of value in Skysplinter Assault right now in the new codex. So the detachment rule is very straightforward. Reign of Cruelty. Every time a Drukhari unit disembarks from a transport, they get Lance on all their close combat and melee weapons, and they get Ignore Cover in all their ranged weapons. Very good rule that is around transports. I have used, this is the detachment that took me to the top cut, the top 8 cut at Las Vegas Open in earlier this year, and it is a very solid detachment. Now, it does mean you need lots of transports to make it really work. However, the damage output is quite high. Ignoring cover is very, very powerful as a rule, and in combat, Lance means that even the most lowly Cabalite warrior can do some damage into some of the toughest targets in the game. As for enhancements, we have Phantasmal Smoke. This one changed a little bit. So the Drukhari model only, while the Bearer's unit is wholly within 6 inches of a transport. The models in the Bearer's unit have stealth, and the each time a ranged attack targets the Bearer's unit, that the models in that unit have the benefit of cover against that attack. So essentially, they get benefit of cover and stealth against basically ranged attacks. As long as they're wholly within 6 of a transport, the transport doesn't even need to be in line of sight, but it allows you to sort of maybe play a little bit defensively. I don't really like this enhancement, because if you're getting shot as a Dark Eldar, you're dying. You're just dead. Dark Eldar just die. And that is a fact of life as a Dark Eldar. Sadistic Fulcrum. Drukhari model only. Each time you spend a pain token to empower the bearer's unit in the shooting phase, you can select a friendly Drukhari transport within 6 inches of the bearer's unit, and until the end of the phase, that transport can reroll hit rolls. It was very powerful with the Tantalus. However, now you get it on a Venom or a Raider. So, sure. If you really need that Raider Dark Lance to take a shot and potentially hit, sure, it's not something that I really find very valuable because my transports are usually hiding behind walls, trying to stay alive. Spiteful Raider is a Drukhari model only. Each time the model's unit, the bearer's unit, destroys an enemy unit in the fight phase, if that enemy unit was within range of the objective when the bearer's unit was selected to fight, you gain an additional pain token. Kind of neat. If you have an early skirmishing unit that's going to run out, try kill stuff on objectives in the first or second turn to kind of generate a little bit of a pain token bank for when you need to like do your go turn. A little bit less useful now that you just get pain tokens at the start of your command phase. You're never going to not have a pain token. And then we have the Nightmare Shroud, the best enhancement in this detachment. Drukhari model only. Each time the bearer's unit disembarks from a transport, you cannot target the bearer's unit with Overwatch for the whole turn. It's very powerful. Keeps that one heavy hitting unit to get out of a transport, go kill something, and not get overwatched. And then with the stratagems, get back into their transport. So it keeps them alive and effective for most of the game. I used to do this with a Court of the Archon with Cabalites and a Raider, but now you can do it with like Incubi or a Hand of the Archon or whatever it is you like to do there with any character, because you can put it on a Succubus, a Homunculus, you can put it on an Archon that can go with like Incubi, Cabalites, or the Hand, right? So lots of versatility there, very good enhancement. Unlike other detachments, it's on one specific unit and only when you disembark from a transport, so it is a little bit more limited than, say, Reaper's Wager. But other than that, you have you have access to all of that stuff as well. Let's dive into the stratagems for this detachment. So, Vicious Blades. Vicious Blades is in your fight phase just after a transport has fought. You basically roll a dice for each model inside of the transport against a unit that that you declared one or more attacks from the transport into, right? And on a 5+, they take mortal wounds to a max of 6. You get +1 to the roll for each rack unit, basically, that's in there. So if you have 10 racks in there, you roll 10 dice on 4+ to do 6 mortals, up to 6. If you have 11 models in there, you roll 11 dice, 5 ups for each rack. Each rack model is +1. So it's basically a grenade in combat from a transport. A handy little sneaky tool to kill some tougher targets like knights, Catan, greater demons, that sort of thing, in case you don't have enough sort of like shooting to deal with them. You can grenade, tank shock, attack with a raider, then vicious blades, and it gives you like a good amount of mortal wounds to sort of like pile on a unit. Wraith-like Retreat. This is my favorite stratagem. I love this stratagem. I have won many a game with this stratagem. So, end of the fight phase, one Drukhari infantry unit from your army that fought this phase. Your unit can make a normal or fallback move, but unless it's witches, it must end that move wholly within 3 inches and 5 inches vertically of a friendly transport, and must embark within that transport at the end of that move. Otherwise, it cannot make that move. So, you're trying to embark into a transport after fighting. Super powerful. Witches, very powerful as well, especially because they don't have to embark into the transport. They can just make the move, which then means you can like pick them up with a Venom afterwards within 6. So it actually gives them a really long distance to kind of go out, fight, and then move all the way back to get wholly within 6 of Venom, and then the Venom picks them up. So you can go 14 inches away from like a Venom and then get Lilith back into a transport. Or you can have like a Raider behind a wall next to, say, a unit, go out, kill them, fight them, and then move your full distance back, and basically within 10 inches of a transport, they can just get within, wholly within 3, and then embark back in, keeping your Incubi, your big killy Archon unit alive, right? So super powerful, super powerful stratagem. Pounce on the prey for 1 CP in your movement phase just after Drukhari infantry unit disembarks from a transport that made a normal move. You target the infantry unit, and until the end of the turn, your unit is eligible to declare a charge. This is also one of my favorite stratagems. Move a vehicle, disembark, charge. It is so good. Now, it's only on normal moves, so it doesn't work on a Venom that advanced and disembarked with a pain token. However, the Raider has a 6-inch disembarkation rule for witches in one of its rules, right? So you can move a Raider 14 inches, disembark a witch unit 6 inches from this Raider. So now the witches have moved 20 inches, and then they can charge. It is so strong. Like, the speed is incredible. It's so, like, how you can be so far back and then get them so involved into the game that this Skysplinter Assault, it can be extremely powerful if used well. Skyborn Annihilation is the next one for 1 CP in your shooting phase. 1 Drukhari unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase and that disembarked from a transport this turn. Ranged weapons get sustained 1 or sustained 2 if they're Cabalites or Hand of the Archon. Really handy if you have an Archon in the unit for full rerolls to hit, right? So then you can go sustained 1 on your Dark Lance, your Blaster, or sustained 2, sorry, on your Dark Lance, Blaster, whatever. Or it could be on anything you get sustained 1, right? That they got out of a transport. Like, you're maybe using it on witches, you're maybe using it on Wracks with a couple of sniper rifles or whatever, sure. But you're really going to use this on Cabalite warriors and the Hand of the Archon, getting out, using the pain ability, and then just maximizing on lethals and sustains, and maybe malices in there, and there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do from that. I like that stratagem for damage output, really handy to have. Swooping Mockery for 1 CP, a reactive move in your opponent's movement phase. Within 9 inches, the enemy moves within 9 inches of a transport, and that transport can move 6 inches. Very handy to have to keep a transport full of very dangerous things alive, behind terrain, make the charge a little longer, etc., etc. I tended to use it a lot to go towards the enemy and then move block the rest of their moves. So there's lots of cool things you can do with that Swooping Mockery. And last but not least, we have the Night Shield. This is the one I love to use with my Void Raven Bomber. In your opponent's shooting phase, after the enemy has selected their targets, 1 vehicle gets a 4+ invulnerable save. Very handy to keep your Ravager alive, that Raider alive, the Void Raven Bomber alive, just with a 4-up invul. We know the 4-ups, they can be amazing. So, good all-rounded detachment based around transports. Is it the most powerful detachment in this book? No. Is it proven to be solid? Yes. You know what? It got me to the finals at LVO. I think that this detachment has some good play. And you're going to notice this a lot throughout this book. These detachments have a lot of play. Next, we're going to take a look at the Spectacle of Spite. This is the detachment I used against Nick and his Harlequins in the battle report that releases today, of course, with this new codex. And I learned a lot. I honestly think that this detachment is a sleeping killer. It is going to catch a lot of people off guard. And if you like witches and gladiators, this is going to be fast, brutal, like a gasoline fire that just burns really bright and fast and then runs out of steam. And it's going to appeal to a lot of you. I enjoyed playing this detachment immensely. And I think it has some really cool implications for the meta with some of the datasheet upgrades that we got in the codex. Let's start with our detachment rule called Combat Drugs. Combat Drugs comes back. Finally, Dark Eldar army with Combat Drugs? Heck yes. That's exactly what we've been waiting for so many years. So Combat Drugs, at the start of your command phase, you basically pick 1 or roll for 2. If you pick 1, you can only pick ones that you haven't picked. If you roll for 2, it doesn't count as picking them, and you can double up, you can not double up on them, but you can essentially roll 1 you had already picked earlier. So what I found was I was rolling early because I was like, I don't care what I get. I was picking them when I absolutely needed, like, extra movement, extra attacks to do damage on, like, specific turns. But most of the time I was rolling because they're all pretty good. There's 6 different ones. Adrenalite, +1 attack. Hypex, +2 move. Serpentine, +1 weapon skill. Painbringer, +1 toughness. Grave Lotus, +1 strength. And Splintermind, +1 leadership and +1 ballistic skill of ranged weapons. These only affect witch cult units. So Succubus, Lilith, apparently, because now I guess she does do drugs. Lilith, witch cult, witches, Reaver Jetbikes, Hellions, right? So, like, they're just going to really benefit from this rule. As for the enhancements, we have Pharmacophex. So, the Succubus model only, start of your command phase, you roll an extra drug, depending even if you picked it, and that drug applies to the unit that that character is in. Sure. The only bad thing about rolling is that any doubles or triples don't really stack at all. So you're like, it doesn't really do anything. Chrono Shard. Once per battle at the start of the fight phase, the bearer's unit can fights first. Nice way of getting an extra fights first unit that's outside of Lilith's once per game. Really handy to have as a tool. The Periapt of Torments. So Succubus model only. Enemy units cannot fire Overwatch, so we've seen that in a couple of detachments. Very useful to have for witches, especially, so they don't just get instantly brutalized by a flamer. And then Morgana's Curse. Succubus model only, +1 AP and damage to her combat weapons. This one is awesome. I love that enhancement, and I would take it on a Succubus every time I'm running this detachment. Then we go into the stratagems. So, Berserk Fugue. In the fight phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its target, 1 witch cult unit for your army for 2 CP fights on death. This is a 2 CP auto fight on death. Very strong. 1 CP deadly debut. In the fight phase, 1 Drukhari unit from your army that made a charge move and has not been selected to fight. Until the end of the phase, you get lethal hits on that unit. Now, this is any Drukhari unit that's in this detachment, right? Very handy. Cabalites, Incubi, like you can give it to anything, right? But if it's a witch unit, you also get +1 AP. So handy to have +1 AP. That means you can get Lilith's unit to +3 AP and to AP3, AP4 like she was before in this detachment. So kind of handy. Pay a CP for it. You know, ignore armor better. And have lethal hits. So lethal hits is very handy into like knights and things like that as well. 1 CP for Feigned Weakness, your movement phase, just after a Drukhari unit falls back. Any Drukhari unit can now shoot and declare charge in a turn in which it fell back. This is any Drukhari unit, not just witches. I love that this detachment is a witch cult detachment. Like the rules for combat drugs and the enhancements benefit witches, but you can make it with a whole variety of different units, and these stratagems are very handy even for your average units in a Drukhari list. Preternatural agility. Start of your movement or charge phase, 1 witch cult unit. Until the end of the phase, each time your unit makes a normal, advance, or charge move, you can ignore modifiers to the move characteristic and to advance and charge rolls. Until the end of the turn, each time a model makes such a move, it can move horizontally through models. When doing so, a model can move within engagement range of such models, but cannot end a normal or advanced move within engagement range of them. So this is really handy as well to like jump over a screen with witches and go punch things behind the screen. So handy to have in your back pocket if your opponent's trying to stop you from getting to the juicy targets, right? Then we have what I think, and mark my words, is one of the strongest stratagems in Warhammer. This stratagem is incredible. End of your opponent's movement phase for 2 CP. End of your opponent's movement phase. So they've moved all their models, right? They've moved everything. 1 witch cult unit from your army that would be able to declare a charge as if it was your charge phase. So pick any witch cult unit. Select 1 enemy unit within 9 of your unit that was set up on the battlefield or that ended a normal, advance, a normal or advance move this phase. Not fallback, so a normal, advance, right? Or it was set up within 9, so like got out of a transport or whatever. Your unit can now declare a charge against that target and only that target. You resolve the charge. You do not get a charge bonus, so you don't get fights first, but say you have a bonus that allows you to get you know, extra stuff when you make a charge. That's fine. This is insanely good. If you have 2 CP in your back pocket, nothing can get close to your army before you jump on it. When I played Nick, he wanted to use Lycus and Warp Spiders to murder my witches, which is exactly what you want to use Lycus for. You can move them 24 inches up and flame all the witches. But because I was sort of like in a way behind, like in buildings, using buildings to stage, if he jumped where he could see me, which was like in the building, he was going to be what? Closer than 9 inches. And what happens with that? I spent 2 CP, I declare a charge, and what happens then? I fight in his turn because I get to pick the first fighter, and all of a sudden that entire unit dies. This stratagem is a sleeper hit, and I love it. It is so, so strong, and it will be so annoying for people to deal with it. At the end of the day, we're still talking about witches. They have t-shirts for saves, but like Hellions with this were incredible. They were just so strong. And it means that your opponent can't just like, you can kind of pick an area of the battlefield, be like, nope, you're not going to shoot me on this side. I'm going to charge you. And you can sort of take control of the impetus of the game again. Having that sort of control is invaluable as a Drukhari player. You can take that to the bank. I had tons of fun with that stratagem. Last but not least, we have Acrobatic Display. So your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit selects its target. One Witch Cult unit that was targeted gets a 5-up invulnerable save for the rest of the phase. So Hellions stuck in the open, getting shot by a bunch of bolters, Reaver Jetbikes, even witches. Give them a 5-up invul save. You might be able to survive, to keep 1 or 2 alive. So not a bad use of a CP. But there you have it, Spectacle of Spite. I do believe that as folks get more comfortable with this detachment, with this codex, this detachment is going to become a fan favorite. I'm already loving the combinations that I can do with this, and it's not going to be all witches, but I have run all witch armies using Reaper's Wager, using Skysplinter Assault. Why? Because I was bored and I wanted to have a fun time. And now they give me the ability to essentially run this detachment with any sort of unit combination I want, get cool bonuses and great stratagems. Enemies of the Drukhari, beware, because we are going to take you alive. Now we take a look at the Covenite Coterie. So this is the Homunculus Coven detachment, and you know, I like the Coven stuff. I've played the 120 Wracks before. What do I think about this detachment? I think it's probably one of the ones that is the most esoteric, in the sense that its strength isn't apparent when you just read it. Now, it is the one detachment that, as of filming, I have not played with yet, which means everything I tell you is purely speculative. I haven't actually put them on the board. Every other detachment I have played, and I'm telling you from full certainty what I know and all the stuff that I have learnt. In this case, I'm not sure yet, right? But let me know with a comment down below if you've played it, what you have found, because it seems like a super interesting detachment. And I know a lot of you love the Coven, big gribbly monsters. Now, put an F in chat, as we have lost the Grotesques and we have lost good old Uri and Rakarth, two of the classic Coven units. I cannot tell you how many tournament games Uri and Rakarth carried me on his back with, you know, him through the finish line. I'm sad that he is gone. So F in chat for Uri and Rakarth and the Grotesques. But without further ado, let's dive in to the Covenite Coterie. So the detachment rule is very simple, called Stitch Flesh Abominations. Each time an attack targets a Coven's unit from your army, if the strength is higher than your toughness, -1 to wound. Really handy to keep like your Talos and your Cronos alive against last cannons, for example. But also all the Wracks all of a sudden now get, you know, -1 to wound if anything of strength 5 or higher is targeting them. That's pretty cool against a lot of different volume style weapons like assault cannons and side cannons and you know, heavy bolters and things like that, right? As the enhancements, Homunculus, they're all Homunculus model only. They're all master, which is basically harkens back to the old masters of whatever it was that were in the old Drukhari Codexes. We have Master Regenist. So each time you use your Fleshcraft ability, which is its pain ability to bring back models in your command phase, you can bring back D3 plus 3 models instead of D3 plus 1. So 4 to 6 models instead of 2 to 4. Monster Nemesign. The bearer's weapons are anti-beast 2+, anti-monster 4+. Okay, kind of handy if your meta is very beast or monster heavy. Master Artisan, +1 to the bearer's wounds, and +1 to the toughness of models in the bearer's unit. So +1 toughness for them and their entire unit, +1 wound for them. Probably one of the better enhancements in this detachment. A big brick of toughness 5 Wracks running around. That's essentially grotesques at that point. Like, grotesques were only toughness 5, right? And you have 20 wounds in a unit of Wracks at toughness 5 instead of 12, but you don't have the feel no pain. But you can bring them back to life. So it's like cool in this detachment, kind of neat, you know? And last but not least, Master Repugnomancer. It's an aura. You add 3 inches to the Fear Incarnate ability, which is the -1 leadership, and you have to take a battle shock test if you're wounded ability from the Homunculus. And each time a friendly Drukhari unit within 9 fails a battle shock test or is destroyed, on a 4+, you gain a pain token. So, good at disrupting the enemy. You want to get them nice and close, but good to keep around your own units, because as your units die, you might get pain tokens. Kind of handy for like that early exchange where you go, oh, I'm just going to put stuff out front, and if they die, I get pain tokens potentially. Kind of handy. Wracks used to do that just like innately in the index, but now you kind of need this detachment and some positioning to make that happen. Cool enhancements. I really like the +1 toughness one, and I do like the Repugnomancer one because of the 9-inch bubble of -1 leadership and have to take battle shock tests. That is kind of handy, especially when you're running like when you want to get a lot of pain tokens or prevent your opponent from like scoring. It's like having a mini Shadow of the Warp walking around with you at all times. But you do have to get the Homunculus very close to the enemy, which in my experience, and I did experience this, they die very fast. They die a lot faster than Urien did because they do not have an invul that's worth mentioning. And they have a 5 of Feel No Pain. And they don't come back to life on a 2+. However, they do come back to life as we look at the stratagems. So that is kind of handy as well. The stratagems are post-mortality for 1 CP. So you use this in any phase. 1 Homunculus model that was just destroyed, you spend 1 to 3 pain tokens, and then at the end of the phase, the model comes back to life with as many wounds remaining as the amount of pain tokens you spent. Kind of handy. You cannot use a stratagem if you have 0 pain tokens. You cannot target the same Homunculus more than once per game. Anybody who plays Awakened Dynasty or against Awakened Dynasty knows how annoying bring back characters from the dead is. That's kind of handy. It's very good, and you can use it for each Homunculus once, which is kind of cool. Symphony of Suffering. In the fight phase, just after a Drukhari unit destroys an enemy unit, that Drukhari unit is the target. Each enemy unit within 9 inches and visible to your unit must take a battle shock test. If your unit is a Homunculus Covens unit, they have to take a -1 leadership. So you can charge them with something, they kill something, and then everything around them within 9 inches and visible has to take a battle shock test. Cool, kind of handy because it happens like it would be less effective at the end of your turn. But if you can kill a unit in your opponent's turn and then cause a battle shock test on a bunch of stuff, right? Then that could mean that they can't do the action that they were complete. Like they can't do the secure no man's land that they were trying to do. They can't do like all this stuff. So it's kind of handy, but like most battle shock mechanics, not something that can be relied on when you need it to happen. It's a cool ability though, cool stratagem, flavorful, but I don't see how it's like applicable every single time. Then we have the Poisoner's Art. Fight phase just after a Coven unit has fought. That Coven unit, you select 1 enemy unit that's not a vehicle, hit by 1 or more attacks, and until the end of the battle, that enemy unit is poisoned. At the start of each command phase, that's each command phase, yours and your opponent's, roll 1d6 for each poison unit on the battlefield, and on a 4+, that unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. So, say your opponent, like, it's handy against, like, tough monsters, right? So if you had, like, I don't know, a Carnifex or a Maleceptor or a Trigon or something, you'd be like, I'm going to run up to you, hit you, and poison you. And then for every single 1, you know, you just, like, on a 4+, they take D3 mortal wounds, and they slowly, like, deteriorate over time, and it's your command phase and my command phase and yours. It seems like it would be very annoying if you're, like, monster. Say you go to, like, Gulliman, you know, like, the Gulliman, and you just, like, poke him, and then he starts melting the entire game, and he's only got, like, what, 10 wounds, 9 wounds, or the Lion, you know, go poke him. Okay, Lion, for the rest of the game. Or Angron, you could be like, hello, Angron, or Mortarion, or Magnus, you know, poke, you're now going to melt. Now, the key would be to get there and make sure that it happens, but it's really funny to me that it's like an ongoing effect where you could actually, like, kill something that you have no business killing over time, and your opponent can do nothing about it. Literally, your opponent has, like, 0 way to interact with this other than removing them from the table. If they had, like, the way of doing uppy downy or something, sure. Hilarious. Hilarious stratagem. Then we have Distillers of Fear. In the fight phase, you one Homunculus unit that has not been selected to fight. Until the end of the phase, each time a model makes an attack that targets an enemy that is battle-shocked, you have devastating wounds. Very situational, but then again, there's lots of different ways to cause battle-shock tests, so you might get to use it. But it is a 2 CP stratagem, and the enemy unit has to be battle-shocked. It works nicely with Wracks because they're twin-linked, right? However, it's, like, situationally good, right? Connoisseurs of Pain for 1 CP. Your opponent's shooting phase or fight phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. 1 Drukhari unit from your army that was selected as a target of 1 or more of the attacking unit's attacks. You spend a pain token. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack is allocated to a model on your unit, you worsen the AP by 1, and at the end of the phase, if a unit's still in the battlefield and it's a Coven unit, you gain a pain token. So it's essentially an Armor of Contempt, and if they survive, you get a pain token. Sure. Then we have 1 CP Enfolding Nightmare. In your opponent's shooting phase. Now, it does work, by the way, Connoisseurs of Pain works in the shooting phase. Can be kind of handy for, like, I don't know, a Talos unit or a Cronos unit. They have a 3-up save. So you're, like, trying to stop, like, your opponent's bolters from getting you or whatever. Can be kind of handy, and then you get a pain token. Useful early game, I think, to keep stuff alive. Then we have Enfolding Nightmare. Your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit has shot. 1 Coven unit that was selected as a target. Roll 1d6, and your unit can be moved a number of inches up to the result, but it must end up close to the enemy as possible, and you can move in engagement. So, just on an enemy unit shot, you can surge move a unit that shot your unit. So it's a surge move for a CP for any Coven unit. Kind of handy. It's probably one of the more useful stratagems in this detachment. So if you shoot at the Talos, they might surge into you, but it's a D6, so it's, like, not really reliable. But it could be handy, could keep you alive. Now, let me know what you think about the Covenite Coterie down below. I think it's probably the one that you'll see the least. However, if somebody skews really heavy into it, is it good for, like, a team event? Like, lots of -1 to wound, battle shock mechanics, lots of OC that's kind of tough, monsters. And you could probably run a full 6 units of Wracks, 3 Homunculus with enhancements, 3 units of Talos, and 3 units of Cronos, and still have plenty of points left over to put in, like, Mandrakes, Scourge, Incubi, an Archon, Cabalite Warriors, Witches. Like, there's so many more things you can put in because there's just not enough units in the Coven stuff to, like, fill out a 2,000 point list. Anyway, let me know what you think with a comment down below. The last detachment of the Codex is the Cabalite Cartel. I got to play this against Jack Harpster, so stay tuned for that battle report. It is already available for Patreons on the Patreon page, so if you want early access to that bat rep, you can go check it down. I played Jack Harpster himself and his brand new spanking World Eaters. I played the Cabalite Cartel. It was a fantastically fun game. Bloodshed everywhere, and I learned a lot about this detachment, which I really liked. So, let's dive in. The detachment rule is a little complicated. It is the murderous agenda. Essentially, you pick a contract unit, which is you pick a unit in your opponent's army that matches the description, and then your army gains a benefit. So, you can pick a character unit, and if you pick a character unit, Cabal and Blade for Hire models in each time a Cabal or Blade for Hire model attacks that unit, you gain precision. So it's essentially a way to, like, pick out a character if you want from inside of a unit. Cool. Now, Sow Fear and Terror is you pick one infantry or mounted unit, and except for models that only have characters or units that are only character models, because it completes as soon as you kill all the non-character models inside of a unit, or that unit that you picked. However, every single time a Cabal Blade for Hire attacks any infantry or mounted, you get sustained 1. So you can pick a contract, and then you get sustained 1 against infantry mounted. Kind of cool. And then you have Show of Strength. In this case, it's a monster vehicle. You pick a contract monster vehicle that you're trying to kill, but your Cabalites and Blades for Hire get lethal hits against any monster vehicle until that contract unit is destroyed. Now, when the contract unit is destroyed, you can complete your contract. The contract, is important to note, completes at the start of your next command phase. So at the start of your command phase, that's when the contract completes. So if you kill your contract halfway through your opponent's shooting phase, then you're going to still have it until your shooting phase. Sorry, in your shooting phase, you're still going to have your contract for the fight phase and stuff and all through your opponent's turn until you have to complete the contract in your command phase. I really liked that mechanic. It was really cool. The way the article wrote it on the Games Workshop site, they had like maybe it's just against that one unit or thing that you picked. But I'll tell you that being able to switch it back and forth is not bad. You can pick like an infiltrating unit, go kill it early, and then you can kind of like recontract to something else. When you complete your contract, you gain 3 pain tokens. So kind of neat, gives you like an influx of pain tokens. One of the other reasons why I didn't find that I was lacking pain tokens is because when I played this, I killed my contract almost every time. I subbed out my contract with an Archon in the backfield that just was using the enemies without number stratagem for free, because the Archons get the free stratagem now. And I just used it effectively. It was really, really cool. I like this Cabalite Cartel. There's some heavy damage, and if you like Cabalites, Incubi, Mandrakes, and Scourge, like this detachment is for you. It is excellent. You can still take Witches in it, you can still take Coven stuff in it, but it's really cool for a bunch of Cabalites to do lots more damage than you expect. As for enhancements, we have the Leech Bite Plate. So it's a 3-up armor save for an Archon, and at the start of either player's command phase, you can pay 1 pain token, and if you do, the bearer regains all its lost wounds. I love this enhancement so much. Why? Because you don't have to use your Shadowfield save. So for all of you influx of brand new Drukhari players, the Shadowfield save on the Archon is, I tend to use it for like the last couple of wounds that the Archon has to try and make. Why? Because as soon as you fail the Shadowfield, you can't re-roll it, and then they don't have an invulnerable save for the rest of the game. However, you can take the armor save, and a lot of the time, even a regular Archon with a 4-up armor save in cover gets a 3-up against most weapons. You can just take 3-up saves all day long, wait until you have 1 or 2 wounds left, and then switch to your Shadowfield save for heavier things, or until you fail it and they die. This means that you can use that effectively, where you can roll 3-up saves now, or in cover, right? You can basically ignore AP1 in cover and get 4-ups against AP2, etc., etc. Awesome, right? And then you can take a few wounds on your Archon, and as soon as they're almost dead, then it's like your turn, and you can be like, oh, you didn't kill my Archon? Pain token, back to full wounds. I love the Leech Bite Plate. It's fantastic. Then we have the Webway Owl. Archon model only. You have Deep Strike, and you can Rapid Ingress for 0 CP. That's kind of cool. I like that. Put the Archon in a big unit of Incubi. Deep Strike them in. Put it with a unit of Cabalites or something on foot. Or a Hand of the Archon or something. Get them into the thick of it. And with the Rapid Ingress, really handy to have. Then we have my next favorite one, which is the Informant Network. At the start of the declared battle formation step, you can select 3 Cabalite Warriors and or Hand of the Archon units, and they gain Infiltrate. Now, this is important to note that both splitting Cabalites and Venoms and this kind of happen about the same time. So yes, you can split stuff in Venoms and have little 5-strong units of Cabalites go and infiltrate. So you can take up space. You don't have to sacrifice your Mandrakes to do this. You can go sticky objectives in no man's land. Like, it gives you so many cool flexible options, and then with Lady Malice, you can even like redeploy them back into your deployment zone if you don't like where it is, or just because you wanted to prevent your opponent from taking up space in the midboard. Like, I love the Informant Network. It is the most expensive enhancement in this detachment, but it is very good. Then we have Towering Arrogance, which is the another Archon model only, like all these enhancements only for Archons. While the bearer is leading a unit, you improve the leadership and OC of that unit by 1. Kind of handy. Cabalites go to OC 3. Hand of the Archon goes to OC 2 or OC 3 on their like capture this objective thing that they have in their data sheet. And if you took the little banners on the sergeants, they go up to like OC 4 or whatever. Sure. Kind of cool, right? I don't really think it's as useful, but it is what it is. Maybe you play against lots of stuff that has like giant hordes of orcs or custodies, and you just really need your unit of Cabalites to take away that objective, right? Or a Norn. Like you can go, oh, well, now at least a little 5-strong unit with an Archon can go and contest an objective from like a Norn assimilator on an objective or something like that, right? That's, 15, 17 OC. So you'd be like, no objective for you, Norn, right? Moving on, the stratagems. Double Cross. 1 CP for the most confusingly written stratagem in all of the land. I don't understand why it's written this way, but it is what it is. It's basically, I'm just going to try and explain it, because reading it is just going to confuse you. When an enemy unit attacks you, you can then reallocate wounds, like just wounds that cannot be taken saves against, to a friendly unit that's like in the same combat, but it has to be an engagement of the model that attacked you. So it has to be, you have to slow roll models and stuff. Really annoying. And then the unit you allocate it to can't really take any saves. You can take Feel No Pains, so like a Cronos, a Talos can take Feel No Pain, so I can see it working with that sort of thing. Another cool combination would be like charge, multi-charge into a unit, fight with something, then your opponent wants to interrupt, they fight you back, and then you make them kill the unit that already fought, so then you get to fight, right? So it's like, there's some cool back and forth there, but it is a very confusing stratagem. And if you know what it means, please let me know. Then we have Taken Alive. It's in the fight phase. 1 Drukhari unit from your army that has not been selected to fight. Until the end of the phase, you get +1 to hit. However, if your contract unit is destroyed as a result of those attacks, every unit in your opponent's army has to take a battle shock test. And then you can get a maximum of 3 pain tokens from battle shock tests that are failed. So it's essentially a 1 CP, kill the contract unit, and then do a Shadow of the Warp for the enemy army. Kind of cool. Now, just don't forget that it's in the fight phase. So once again, a lot more effective in your opponent's fight phase, because then they get battle shocked for all of your turn, whereas it's less effective in your fight phase, because then they instantly revert back to normal in their command phase, right? So timing matters. Tailored Toxins, one of my favorite stratagems in this detachment. 1 CP in your shooting or fight phase, 1 Cabal of Blade for Hire unit, right, that is not shot or fought yet. Until the end of the phase, each time they make an attack that targets the contract unit, a critical hit of a 5+ scores critical hit. So 5-up criticals against the contract unit, shooting or fighting. Don't forget, we're looking at either lethals or sustains or precision, right? But precision doesn't really matter. So it's really only for like the lethals or precision. And if you had, I don't know, any other thing that does critical hits, sure. But that's really cool, because now all of a sudden you've got like a Cabalite squad shooting unit doing lethals or sustains on 5s with an Archon with reroll all hit rolls, like, or an Incubi unit, right, going in and doing a 5 or 10 strong Incubi unit with like crit 5s lethals against a Knight or something with 4 rerolls. Like, this is pretty dang awesome. I love this strat, and it is worth way more than 1 CP. Or, if you have an Archon in the unit, 0 CP, because they have that ability as well, right? I love that strat. 1 CP, enemies without number. So in your command phase, just after you complete your contract, right? So in your command phase, you complete your contract. You basically use this 1 CP strat to issue another contract. So pick another enemy unit that you hate and then get the benefits that entails. I loved it with an Archon that I kept on the back, my home field objective, and he just sat there and was like, okay, new contract for free, because that is my datasheet ability. I can use strats for, -1 CP. Boom. Free new contract. It was excellent. I really enjoyed that. 1 CP, making a point. It has to be a Warlord Archon, by the way. So just keep that in mind. And they have to be on the table. So they can't be in a transport. They have to be on the table. So keep them in the back, just issuing contracts. That's why I like the leech plate. I gave it the leech bite plate so that if they got shot with mortars or whatever, I could just be like, oh, pain token, I'm healed. It was just fantastic. Making a point for 1 CP in your shooting phase for 1 Cabalite warrior or Hand of the Archon unit. When they shoot, improve the ballistic skill and AP of weapons by 1. So, +1 ballistic skill, +1 AP for a unit of Cabalite to the hand. Very cool, which also you can combine with either the Void Raven Bomber for ignore cover and the Scourge with carbines for an extra AP. So you can have AP2 Splinter Rifles, rerolling hits, rerolling wounds on objectives with an Archon, with crit 5s. I don't know, there's a whole bunch of stuff. And +1 ballistic skill, so hitting on 2s. This is making a point. That's really cool. I really like this one. It really makes your Cabalites actually dangerous in shooting with poison weapons, which is not something we've seen in a very long time. Last but not least, we have 1 CP Deadly Deceivers in your opponent's shooting phase. 1 Cabal Blade for Hire unit is Lone Up 18. This is really cool for a Scourge unit with Dark Lances that's sitting on a building to take advantage of their heavy special rules so they hit better. They can't get shot if they're not within 18. It's really good for a Cabal unit, which, guess what, is a Ravager. You can actually give a Ravager Lone Up 18 to keep them alive. I really value things like Ravagers in this detachment, Cabalites of all sorts, Mandrakes, Incubi, and Scourge. Of course, you're probably still going to bring Lilith and Witches because she's so good, but if you don't, and you don't like her, you don't need to. You can just shoot stuff to death with the Cabalite Cartel. Really fun detachment, and I think one of the more powerful ones in the Codex. So now let's jump into the last detachment that we're going to talk about, which is the Reaper's Wager. Now, the Reaper's Wager is the Grotmost detachment for the Drukhari, and with the Codex, it gets some really cool things, as the datasheets in the book and the Codex have become a lot more powerful. So, the datasheet ability, or the detachment ability for Callous Competition, is essentially the army just gets reroll 1s to hit. That's it. Because of the loss of the rerolls for pain tokens, reroll 1s to hit is quite good because it affects the whole army. Now, the whole thing about Reaper's Wager is you want to take Harlequins. You're allowed to take up to 1,000 points of Harlequins in a Strike Force army. So 2,000 points, half of your army could be Harlequins. I normally only take something like a Solitaire, Void Weaver. Some folks really like the Jetbikes, or even a Troop Master with a small unit of troops in a Star Weaver, or the Shadow Seer and a big brick of foot Harlequins. So you can put Harlequins in if you want. The benefit of just getting reroll 1s to hit increases the efficiency of the entire army exponentially, especially things like characters and things like that. I do think that with the new Codex, Reaper's Wager is still one of the strongest detachments that we have access to. However, it is no longer the only strongest. There are a lot of different ways to play with this Drukhari Codex. Now, if a Harlequin unit kills an enemy unit, you flip the wager, and now all of a sudden, Drukhari units get reroll 1s to hit and wound, and then as soon as a Drukhari unit kills an enemy unit, they flip the wager over again, and then it's Harlequins back to rerolling 1s to hit and wound. Essentially, think of it as reroll 1s to hit, sometimes rerolling 1s to wound, depending on who's winning or losing the wager. Let's take a look at the announcements. So, Arc Raider, right? A Harlequin or Drukhari model only. You basically get Scout 9 on the transport that they are within. So you can have a character attached to a unit, put a whole other unit inside, and then the transport has Scout, allowing you to scout the transport up with all its occupants. Really handy. I'm really liking it in the new Codex within a Raider. So in the Raider, I put Cabalite Warriors and the Archon, and then I put Witches inside as well, which allows me to take advantage of the Raider's cool pick Build-A-Bear abilities to scout it up, and then the first battle round sticky my my expansion objective, and then later in the game get the 6-inch get out for Witches and have them yeet forward and do some damage. So I really like that combination in Reaper's Wager. Webway Walker is for a Drukhari or Harlequin unit only. Models in the unit have Deep Strike, and when they are set up, they get reroll charges as well. That's kind of handy now that we don't get reroll charges for free, of course. However, it is, on a turn in which they come down, which it is what it is. So it is what it is because it's just for that turn. But it is cool for like deep striking a unit and just kind of getting them in position, like Incubi or whatnot, to like a good rapid ingress threat, things like that. And nowhere is safe with Webway Walker. Then we have the Reaper's Cowl. This is a Harlequin model only. Model in the unit have stealth and infiltrate. Some folks were playing around a lot with a large unit of Harlequins with a Troop Master or a Shadow Seer with this. I've never been a big fan of infiltrating a very expensive unit into the middle of the board, because if you don't go first, it's a huge point investment and it can die very quickly, and then you're just SOL. Then the unit doesn't really do anything, and that is not something that I like to invest in. I like investing in stuff that I'm going to use every time, all the time, or things that are not expensive, so that if it fails, the gambit fails, I'm not out, 250 points of my army. Last but not least, we have the Conductor of Torment. Now, this is for Drukhari model only, and they have to be on the battlefield, right? In your command phase, you can either gain a pain token and flip the wager from Harlequins to Drukhari, like winning for Drukhari, or spend a pain token and make Drukhari lose it, and then essentially get real ones to wound for your Drukhari, or gain a pain token and get real ones to wound for your Harlequins. Because of the way pain tokens are a little different now, it's just interesting to see, but I still think that I would prefer to have pain tokens not to get used for this. And it's very expensive. The enhancement I like the most in this attachment is the Arc Raider. I think it is the best one here, followed closely by the Webway Walker. Then we have some of the best stratagems in the game on this detachment, and they are still incredibly good. And even with this codex, I think that I'm going to be playing some Reaper's Wager competitively, mainly because I have so much practice with Reaper's Wager, and Reaper's Wager doesn't change very much, which means I can just take all the practice that I have, the hundreds of games with Reaper's Wager, and just translate it into the new codex. But as soon as WCW is over and my aim to be the #1 player in the world is I'm completed that journey and we're done the World Championships of Warhammer, you're going to see me play every detachment at events, a whole bunch of stuff. But for now, these stratagems continue to be some of the best in the game. We have Malicious Frenzy, right? So it's 1 CP for any Drukhari or Harlequin unit in the shooting or fight phase to get lethal or sustained 1 against a target. Awesome. Really useful. A little bit less useful now that you don't get full rerolls, but a lot of the time I was just using it on Haywire Scourge to get multiple extra hits into vehicles, and then translating an average of 9 dev wounds into more like 15 dev wounds against a tank. Really, really good stratagem. Then we have Fateful Roll. 1 CP in the fight phase, just on an enemy unit has selected its targets. You pick 1 Drukhari or Harlequin unit, and then until the end of the phase, in the fight phase. So it's in the fight phase, 1 CP, fight on death on a 4+. Now, if you're losing the wager, it's on a 3+. So at first, Harlequins have it on a 3+. However, if you have flipped the wager at some point, it could be Drukhari units fight on death on a 3+. It's a little bit of leeway there. But 1 CP fight on death, not terrible. Especially into a meta that has tons of World Eaters and Black Templars and Blood Angels and Tyranids and a whole bunch of stuff that wants to kill you. It's nice that you can die and potentially do damage back. Then we have Murderer's Circus. 1 CP in the fight phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. 1 Drukhari Harlequin unit that was selected, you get -1 to be hit. So essentially a lightning fast reactions, but only in close combat. Now, this is a little bit less of a detriment now that a lot of our units can still get Phantasm Grenade Launchers. And what Phantasm Grenade Launcher does is it gives you the grenade keyword and it gives you the smoke keyword, which allows you to use the smoke screen on some units like Hellions, Cabalite Warriors. I believe, I'm not sure if Witches can have it, but Witches I think just have grenades in general, not smoke. But you could have -1 to hit against stuff that has a smoke keyword. So you could do it on a Cabalite squad in the shooting phase using the smoke screen, or Hellions using the smoke screen. And then in combat, you have this, which gives you -1 to hit. Just changes the math ever so slightly, can kind of keep your units alive, which is kind of handy. Then we have shorten the odds for 1 CP. In your movement phase, just after Drukhari unit has advanced, or Harlequin unit, you basically can advance and shoot and charge. So, advance, shoot, and charge for 1 CP for any unit. Very good. This is an excellent stratagem. You know what this is very good on? Reaver Jetbikes that move 24 inches after an advance. Nothing is safe. That is an insane distance to go and then charge. I absolutely love this with a big brick of Hellion for a big brick of Reaver Jetbikes. Better like this is more powerful than a beast pack. I'm telling you right now, you can get closer. You have melta guns, and they have lance on all their attacks. I love shorten the odds. Fantastic stratagem. Then we have scintillating tempo, 1 CP in your movement phase or your charge phase, just after Drukhari or unit is selected to make a normal advance or fallback move or is set up on the battlefield or declares a charge, right? So any variety of different spaces, 1 CP, ignore Overwatch. This stratagem is one of the reasons why I started using this detachment, and it's probably one of the reasons I will continue to use this detachment. Being able to just ignore Overwatch on demand on any unit is incredible at a competitive level, because it allows you to just keep that one unit that you need to stay alive to do its job so that you can win the game. Super powerful. And you can use it on multiple units in a turn. You could be like, oh, I'm going to use this in my movement phase and in my charge phase, right? So 2 different phases. So you can have 2 units do it. And you can do it when you just set up a unit, or when you select them to move, or when you select them to do a charge. So it's like, before your opponent can do anything about it, you're like, okay, I'm just going to immune to Overwatch here, and I'm going to charge you. It's very, very strong. And last but not least, Danse Macabre. We go from some of the best ones in the game to some of the worst, which is 2 CP, reactive move of D6 inches for infantry only. Sure, if you're Harlequin, you get, if you're losing the wagers, so Harlequins, you get a straight 6, but it's 2 CP. However, it is a little better now. Why? Because Archons give you the CP, a free CP, basically make a strat -1. I love that. That means that you can kind of like have more of a reactive move with an Archon in their unit to get into a transport a lot easier. This is very good. I really like the fact that you can combine it more with like Archons to get it a reactive move as 1 CP for a unit with an Archon. Very powerful. To get back into a Raider if the enemy gets too close, to get back into a Venom, to move behind a wall. Like, I love it when you take into factor the Archon with it's 1 CP for that. That is good, but at 2 CP for D6, it's kind of meh, right? But there you have it. That is the Reaper's Wager. I still think one of the solid detachments. Yes, it's a Grotmus detachment. Yes, whatever. But at a competitive level, this is still good. It doesn't mean that the other ones are worse or better. It just means that this is still a contender for a detachment that you are going to want to take a look at as you dive in to being a Drukhari Archon, Succubus, or Homunculus. And there you have it, folks. Detachments, enhancements, units for the new Drukhari Codex. Make sure you stay tuned for more stuff. I will be going over all the Crusade stuff in its own video. I will be giving you some more up-to-date stuff. I'm going to be doing a video on how to build different ones of the army lists. Of course, in the Patreon Discord, we're already talking about tons of stuff like lists and tactics and all the extra stuff that I've been doing with all of the Denizen community on Patreon. I am super excited about this book, and I'm so happy it came out before the World Championships of Warhammer. Of course, I'm trying to be #1 in the world, and this just came out in time for me to be able to take it to the Golden Ticket event. I'm super pumped about it. Please let me know with a comment down below. Please like this video. Share it with your friends, especially if they're Drukhari aficionados and they want to learn more about the Dark Kin. I have been Skari. A huge shout out to the channel Patreons. All the links are down below to support what I do if you want to get more involved. I do coaching. I do Drukhari stuff all the time, not just for Drukhari, but I am the #1 Drukhari player in the world right now. And if you want to learn more about this wonderful faction, get in touch with me. I'd love to teach you some more. I've been Skari, your grateful host, signing off until next time. Skari out. Ah, the Dark Kin. Bye, everybody.